The Book of Heaven. Volume 27. The divine will absorbs me in everything, and in spite of all my reluctance to write, the omnipotent Fiat, by its empire, imposes itself on the little creature that I am. His divine authority. Reign over me. Overthrow my will and, depositing it at his divine feet like a stool, brings me by its sweet and powerful empire to write a new volume when I thought I could stop a little. Oh! Adorable, sovereign, and holy will, since you want this sacrifice, I do not feel the strength to resist and fight with you. I prefer to worship your dispositions and blend in with your holy will. Please to help me, to strengthen my weakness and to allow me to write only what you want, and in the way you want it. Oh, please. Let me just repeat to you without adding anything that comes from me. And you, my love in the sacrament. From this holy cell where you look at me and where I look at you. Do not refuse me your help when I write, but come and write with me. Only in this way will I have the strength to begin. I made my usual round in creation to follow all the acts of the supreme will in all created things. My sweet Jesus, coming out of me, said to me, my daughter, when the creature goes through the works of its creator, it means that it wants to recognize, appreciate, love what God has done out of love for it. She has nothing to give him back in return. By browsing his works, it is as if she took the whole creation in the palm of her hand and gave it back to God, intact and magnificent, for his glory and honor. And she said to him, I recognize you and glorify you in your works which alone are worthy of you. Our delight at seeing that we are recognized in our works by the creature is so great that it seems to us that creation is repeated to give us double glory. This double glory is returned to us because the creature recognizes our works made out of love for her and these works are given to her so that she may love us. By his gratitude of our gift, the creature encloses the whole sky in his soul. We see, in his smallness, our divine being with all our works. Even more, because our divine being is present in the smallness of this creature, it possesses the ability and space to enclose the whole. Oh! What a prodigy! To see the all contained in human smallness, and to see her, bravely, give the all to the all only to love and glorify it. Let the whole of our supreme being be the whole. There is nothing in this that should surprise us, for this is our divine nature to be the whole. But the whole in human smallness is the wonder of wonders. These are the wonders of our divine will, that wherever he reigns, he cannot make our divine being a half of being, but only the whole being. And since creation is nothing but an outpouring of love from our Creator Fiat, it contains all his works wherever he reigns. That is why human smallness can say, I give God to God. It is for this reason that when we give ourselves to the creature, we want everything, even its nothingness, so that on this nothing our creative word can be repeated, and that we can form our all on the nothingness of the creature. If it does not give us everything, its smallness, its nothingness, our creative word cannot be repeated. It is neither proper nor an honor for us to repeat it. Because, when we speak, we want to get rid of everything that does not belong to us. And when we see that it does not give itself completely, we do not make it our own. And it remains the smallness and nothingness that it is, while we remain in the all that we are. After which I continued my abandonment in the supreme Fiat. I felt sad because of some things that don't need to be written here. And my ever-kind Jesus, in love with compassion for me, hugged me and said to me, oh! How dear is the daughter of my will! But you must know that sadness does not enter into my divine will. My will is eternal joy, which makes peaceful and happy the home where she reigns. Therefore, this sadness, although I know to be the cause, is an old-fashionedness of the human will. My divine will does not receive the old things in your soul, for it has so many new things that the space in your soul is not big enough to receive them all. Also, outside, your sadness outside. Oh! If you knew the rare beauties that my divine will forms in your soul. Wherever it reigns, my will forms its sky, its suns, its sea, and the little breeze of its divine freshness. An unsurpassable craftsman, she possesses in herself the art of creation. When she enters the creature to form her kingdom, she is eager to repeat her art. It extends into it the heaven's end. It forms the sun and all the beauties of creation. In fact, wherever it reigns, my will wants its own things. She trains them with her art and surrounds herself with works worthy of my fiat. That is why the beauty of the soul where it reigns is indescribable. Isn't this so in the human order? If someone does a job, they don't lose their art by performing it. Art remains his property and he has the virtue of repeating his work as often as he wishes. If the work is beautiful, he is very eager to have the opportunity to repeat it. This is the case with my divine will. The work of creation is beautiful, majestic, sumptuous, filled with order and unspeakable harmony. Therefore my will awaits the opportunity to repeat it. This opportunity is given to her by the souls who let her dominate and extend her kingdom in them. Therefore, courage! Stay away from everything that does not belong to my divine fiat, that he may be free to do his divine work. Otherwise you would form clouds around you that would prevent the light to spread and to make its radiant rays shine in your soul. I was doing my round in creation and redemption. My little intelligence stopped when my charming little child, in the act of coming out of the womb, threw himself into the arms of the Heavenly Mother. In his desire to manifest his first outpouring of love, he wrapped his mother's neck with his little arms and kissed her. The Divine Queen also felt the need to make her first outpouring of love towards the Divine Child. She returned her kiss to him with such maternal affection that the heart seemed to come out of her chest. These were the first outpourings between the mother and her son. I thought to myself, who knows how many goods this outpouring contained? My sweet Jesus, appearing in the form of a little child kissing his mother, and he said to me, "My daughter, how much I felt the need to manifest this outpouring towards my mother." In fact, everything that was done by our Supreme Being was just an outpouring of love. In the Virgin Queen I centralized all the outpouring of love that we had in creation. Because, as my divine will was in her, my mother was capable to receive, with my kiss, such a great effusion, and to return it to me. In fact, only the creature who lives in my divine will centralizes in it the continuous act of all creation, and the attitude of returning it to God, to the one who possesses my divine will. I can give everything and she can give me everything back. Even more, as we have produced creation in an outpouring of love to give to the creature, it lasts and will last forever. The one who is in my divine will is also present in our house. It receives the continuity of our effusion with the continuous act of all creation. In fact, in order to preserve it as we did it, it is as if we were still in the act to create it and to say to the creature, by this outpouring that is ours in the creation of so many things, we say to you, I have loved you, I love you, and I will always love you. And the soul that allows itself to be dominated by our divine will is unable to contain such a great outpouring of love. Also spreads and said to us, repeating our same refrain, in your will I have loved you. I love you and I will always love you always. In fact, aren't all the things created outpourings of love that are fiat, as the first actor showed to the creature? This azure sky studded with stars is an outpouring of love. By always remaining extended, without ever weakening or changing, it presents our continual outpouring of love for the creature and he spreads our continual love by putting on the whole earth with light. All the effects it produces, innumerable, are continual and repeated effusions that it testifies to the creature. Effusion of love is the sea that whispers and repeats its gigantic waves, sometimes quiet, sometimes tempestuous. All the fish it produces are nothing but the continual outpouring of our love. Outpouring of love is the earth. When it opens to produce flowers, plants, and fruits, our love continues its ardent outpouring. In short, there is not a single thing created by us where the continual outpouring of our love is not found. But who is aware of our many effusions? What creature feels invested in our creative force and touches with his own hand our inextinguishable flames to the point of feeling the need to return in turn his loving effusions to his Creator? She is the one who lives in our divine fiat. It is for her a continual creation. She feels the power of our creative force which, operating in her, makes him touch with his hand. That her Creator is in the act of continually creating out of love for her, and makes him feel his uninterrupted effusions in order to receive his own in return. But who can say our satisfaction when we see that the creature, by the possession of our divine fiat, receives and recognizes our effusions, as it is unable to contain the great excess of love of our divine effusions. In the very outpouring of our love, it forms its own outpouring towards its Creator. It then seems to us to be rewarded for all that we have done in creation. We feel the creature telling us, in its delirium, "Adorable Majesty, if this were in my power, I too would like to create for you a sky, a sun, a sea, and all that you have created. To tell you that I love you. Of this same love and with your own works. For love cannot be called love, a love that does not act. But since your divine will has given me everything of what you have created, I return it to you to tell you that I love you, I love you." And so harmony, the exchange of gifts, order returns between the Creator and the creature, as was established by God in creation. Now you must know that by doing His will, man has lost order, harmony, and the right to the gift of creation. For my will having created it, all creation belongs to it. It is only to the creature in whom it reigns that my divine will grants this right. But the one in whom she does not reign can be called an intruder in her works. She, therefore, cannot act as owner, nor give to God what does not belong to Him, nor feel all the outpourings of love that exist in creation, because it does not have in its possession our divine will that speaks to it of our love story. Without our divine will, man is the true little ignorant of his Creator, and he remains as a little student without a master. Oh, what a pain to see man without our fiat! Even more, like our creation and our narrator, she is a carrier of our kisses of love, of our affectionate embraces. Oh, how much my humanity felt all this when it was on earth! When I went out, the sun gave me the kiss that my will had deposited in its light to give to the creatures. The wind gave me the caresses, the embraces it contained in deposit of my own divine will. All of creation was overflowing with divine charisms to be given to creatures. My humanity received all this and gave back, in order to give free rein to so many repressed kisses, rejected embraces, and of love unknown for so many centuries. In fact, as my divine will did not reign, man was unable to receive the good that my very will had placed in all of creation. My humanity, possessing this divine will, gave him the first expression, received and paid back for all that this divine will had placed in all creation. And that's why, when I went out, all the things created were celebrating and competing with each other to give me what they had. Therefore, be attentive and have at heart to live only in my divine will. If you want to feel, deeply, what your Jesus tells you about His supreme fiat, my abandonment in the life of the divine will continues. Oh, that its creative force is powerful! Oh, how dazzling its light is, and penetrates deep into the fibers of my heart to invest it, caress Him, develop a space and elevate His throne of domination and command. But it is done with such delightful sweetness that the smallness of the creature remains annihilated. Happy, however, to remain lifeless and dissolved in the divine fiat. Oh, if all knew you, O adorable will, how much they would like to get lost in you, to regain your life and be happy with a divine happiness. But as my smallness melted into the divine fiat, my kind Jesus manifested Himself in me and, clutching me very tightly against His divine heart, He said to me, "My daughter, only my divine will can make the creature happy. By its light, it eclipses or flees all evils and says, with its divine power, I am endless happiness. Flee, all evils. I want to be free, because in front of my happiness, all evils are lifeless. For the one who lives in my divine will, its power is great to the point of transforming the actions of the creature. It occurs an exchange of life between her and God. An exchange of shares, steps, heartbeats. God remains attached to the creature and the creature to God. They become inseparable beings. In this exchange of action and life, it is a game that is played between the Creator and the creature, who become the prey of each other. And in doing so, they play in a divine way. They make each other happy. They are celebrating. God and the creature sing victory, feel victorious because no one has lost, but one has conquered the other. In fact, in my divine will, no one loses. Defeats do not exist in her. It is only from the one who lives in my will that I can say that she is my joy in creation. I feel victorious by lowering myself to let myself be conquered by the creature. Because I know she won't object to letting herself be conquered by me. Therefore, may the flight into my will always continue. I thought after that of many things that my blessed Jesus had told me about his divine will and his ardent desires to make himself known. And that despite his burning desires, nothing was done to satisfy them. And I thought, what wisdom of God, what profound mysteries! Who will ever be able to understand them? He wants it. He is sad because there is no one to open the way to his will, to make it known. He shows his languid heart that yearns for his divine will to be known, to form his kingdom in the heart of creatures. Yet, as if he were a helpless God, the lanes are closed. The closed doors Jesus endures with invincible and unspeakable patience. He waits for doors and paths to open, and he knocks on the door of hearts, to find those who will be concerned with making his divine will known. I thought that my sweet Jesus, making himself all goodness and tenderness, to the point of breaking the most hardened hearts, said to me, "My daughter, if you knew how much I suffer when I want to form my works and make them known to creatures to give them the good they contain, and that I find no one with the true enthusiasm, the true desire, and the will to make my work his life, to make it known and to give to others the life of the good of my works that he feels in himself. When I see these provisions in celui qui doit s'en occuper, celui que j'appelle coisus, avec tant d'amour, pour l'œuvre qui m'appartient, j'ai mis sans si attire vers lui. Pour qu'il puisse bien faire ce que j'ai veux. I lower myself. I descend into him and I give him my mind, my mouth, my hands, and even my feet in order to that he may feel life and my work in all things. And that, like a life felt, and not as something external to him, that he can feel the need to give it to others. My daughter, when a good is not felt as life in itself, everything ends with words and not works. So I stay outside, not inside. They therefore remain poor cripples, without intelligence, blind, dumb, without hands and feet. And I, in my works, do not want to use poor cripples. I put them aside. Without worrying about time, I continue to look for those which are arranged, which must serve my work. I never got tired of traveling the centuries and the whole earth, to find the smallest creature, and place in its smallness the great deposit of knowledge about my divine will. Nor will I tire of traveling the earth, again and again, to find those who are really willing, who will appreciate, as of life, what I have manifested on the divine fiat. They will make all the sacrifices to make it known. So I am not the helpless God, but the patient God who wants his works to be done as appropriate and by well-disposed and unforced people. For what I abhor most in my works is the ill will of creatures. As if I didn't deserve their small sacrifices. For the propriety of such a great work, which is to make known my divine will, I don't want to use poor cripples. In fact, for the one who does not have the true will to do good, it is always a mutilation that he inflicts on his soul. But I want to use people who, when I provide them with my divine members, act as appropriate, as well as the merit of a work that must bring so much good to the creatures and great glory to my Majesty. I felt immersed in the divine Fiat. His light surrounded me everywhere, inside and out. My sweet Jesus, making himself seen, hugged me and, approaching my mouth, he sent the breath of his mouth into mine, but so loud that I couldn't contain it. Oh! How pleasant, sweet, and strengthening Jesus' breath was! I felt reborn to a new life. My ever-kind Jesus said to me, "My daughter, everything that comes out of our creative hands contains continual creation and preservation. If our act of creation and preservation withdrew from the heavens, the sun, and all the rest of creation, all life would disappear. Because, as creation is the nothing, they need the all to be preserved. That is why our works are inseparable from us. What is not subject to separation is always loved, kept forever under our gaze. The work, like the one who created it, becomes one. Our Fiat, which pronounced itself in the act of creation of all things, remained in the act, to always express itself, to constitute the act and eternal life of all creation. Our action is not like that of man, who does not place his breath, his heartbeat, his life, and his warmth in his work. Therefore, his work is separable from him. Nor does he love her with an invincible and perfect love. Because when something is separable, we can even forget it. On the other hand, in our works, it is the life we place, which is loved to the point that to preserve it, we always make our life run in our works. If we see any danger, as happened with man, we sacrifice our lives to save the life that ran in our work. Now, my daughter, your life in our divine Fiat began with our request for your will that you very willingly gave me. When I saw you give me your will, I felt victorious by my breath in you. I wanted to pronounce my omnipotent Fiat in the depths of your soul to renew the act of creation. It is this Fiat that I always repeat so that it gives you continual life by being repeated, it preserves you and maintains its life in you. That is why you often feel my breath renewing your soul, in you. The inseparability I feel is my divine will that makes me love, with eternal love, what we have deposited in you. Every time my Fiat is repeated, each of his truths that he manifests to you, each of his acquaintances or every word he tells you, is a love that rises in us, so that we may love you even more and to be loved. It is our Fiat creator and preserver who, loving his life and what he has done in you, continues to pronounce, in order to preserve his life and the beauty of his work. Therefore, be attentive and continually receive the word of my Fiat. For it is the bearer of creation, life, and preservation. After which I made my round to follow the deeds of the divine Fiat in creation. Arriving in Eden, I stopped in the act where man rejected the divine will to make his own. Oh! How much I understood the great evil of doing the human will! And my beloved Jesus, manifesting himself in me, said to me, "My daughter, terrible in truth was the moment of Adam's fall, when he rejected our divine will to make his own. Our Fiat has been in the act of withdrawing from the heavens, the sun, and all creation, to reduce it to nothingness. For he who had rejected our divine will no longer deserved our Fiat to maintain the continual act of creation and preservation throughout creation, created out of love for man, and which he received as a gift from his Creator. If the Eternal Word had not offered his anticipated merits as a future Redeemer, as he offered them to preserve the Immaculate Virgin from original sin, everything would have fallen into ruin, the heavens and the sun would have withdrawn into our source. When our divine will withdraws, all created things lose their lives. But the Word made man presented himself before the divinity. He has made all his merits present in advance. So all things stayed in their place. My Fiat continued its work of creation and preservation, waiting for my humanity to offer it to him as a legitimate gift, and which I deserved so well that the solemn promise was made to man, that the future Redeemer would descend to save him, and that man would pray and be prepared to receive it. Our will has done everything. With justice, she had a right over everything. By doing his will, man lost his divine rights over creation. Therefore, he no longer deserved the sun to give him its light. When the light put on him, our will felt that the rights of his light were being snatched from him. For every created thing that man took and used was a tear made to our will. Without my humanity, all was lost to man. Therefore, not doing my divine will contains all the evils and causes the loss of all the rights, both of heaven and earth. While doing my will contains all goods and acquires all rights, human and divine. I was doing my usual round in the divine fiat, calling all that he had done in creation and redemption. I offered it to the divine majesty, to ask that the divine will be known, so that she may reign and dominate among creatures. As I did this, I thought to myself, what good am I doing by repeating these rounds, these acts, and these offerings? My kind Jesus, manifesting himself in me, said to me, my daughter, every time you make your rounds in our works and join these acts performed by my fiat in creation and redemption to offer them to us, you take a step towards heaven, and my divine will takes a step towards the earth. So, as you go up, she goes down. While remaining immense, it becomes small and locks itself in your soul to repeat your actions, your offerings and your prayers with you. We feel our divine will to pray in you. We feel his breath coming out of you. We feel his heartbeat throbbing in us at the same time as in you. We feel the power of our creative works that aligning all around us. Pray with our divine power. May our divine will descend to rule the earth. Even more, given that in what you do, you are not an intruder, nor someone who, not being responsible for anything, has no power. But you were called and, in a special way, you were given the charge to make known our divine will and to ask that our kingdom be constituted at the heart of the human family. So there is a big difference between the one who has received a charge from us, and the one that has no function. The one to whom an office has been entrusted, whatever she does so by right, in complete freedom. Because this is our divine will. It represents all those who must receive the good we want to give, by means of the charge it has received. Thus, you are not the only one to take a step towards heaven. For there are all who will know my divine will. As she descends through you into all those who will let her reign. Therefore, the only way to obtain the reign of the divine fiat is to use our works to obtain such a great good. I then continued to follow the deeds of the divine will. Arriving at the point where she called the sovereign queen out of nothingness, I stopped to grasp her all beauty and majesty. Her rights as queen extended everywhere. Heaven and earth bowed to recognize her empress of all and all things. And I, from the bottom of my heart, venerated and loved the sovereign lady. As a little girl, I wanted to jump on her maternal lap to tell her, Holy Mother, you are all beautiful, and this because you live in the divine will. Oh, please. You who possess it, pray to her to come down to earth and come to reign among your children. I was doing this so my beloved Jesus added, my daughter. Even if my mother had not been my mother. The simple fact of having perfectly fulfilled the divine will. Not to have known any other life and to have lived in the fullness of my will. By virtue of his continual life in my fiat. She would have possessed all the divine prerogatives. She would always be queen, the most beautiful of all creatures. In fact, wherever my divine fiat reigns, he wants to give everything, he retains nothing. Best of all, he loves the creatures so much that by using his love stratagems, it hides. He is very small in her and likes to be on her lap. Besides, isn't this what the sovereign queen of heaven achieved when she managed to realize that I was conceived in her and to hide in his bowels? Oh! If all knew what my divine will is capable of doing, and can do, they would make any sacrifice to live solely on my will. I felt immersed in the divine fiat. I could see before my poor mind the whole creation and the great wonders carried out in it by the divine will. It seemed that everything created wanted to tell what it possessed in the great and divine fiat to make it known, love and glorify. My spirit was looking at creation. Then my sweet Jesus manifested himself out of me and he said to me, "My daughter, all are waiting for the story of the great poem of the divine will. The creation was the first external act of the operation of my fiat. It therefore contains the beginning of his story, telling all that he did out of love for the creature. This is the reason why, wanting to tell you the whole story of my divine will, I have included the whole story of creation, with so many details, so that you and all the others can know what my divine fiat has done and wants to do, as well as its just right to reign among human generations. Not everything that has been done in creation is fully known by creatures, nor the love that was ours in creating it. Creatures do not know how everything created carries a note of love, one being distinct from the other, each containing a special good for creatures. Indeed, their lives are linked to creation by indissoluble bonds. If the creature wanted to withdraw from the goods of creation, it could not live. Who could give him the air to breathe, the light to see, the water to drink, the food to feed himself, the land to walk there? And while my divine will has its continual act, its life and its history to make known in everything created, the creature does not know it and lives from my will without knowing it. And that's why all of them are waiting. Creation itself wants to make known such a holy will. Because I have spoken to you with so much love about creation and what my divine fiat does in it, creation shows its great desire to want to be better known. Especially since a good that is not known does not bring life or the benefit it contains. Therefore, my will remains as sterile in the midst of creatures, without producing the fullness of its life in each of them, because it is not known. After which I felt in me a strength that wanted to follow all the acts that the divine fiat had performed in creation and redemption. In doing so, I thought, what is the point of wanting to follow the divine will in all things? And my beloved Jesus added, "My daughter, you must know that everything my divine will has done in creation and redemption, it has done out of love for creatures. She did it so that the creatures, upon learning it, rise in his actions to see her, love her and unite their acts with her own. In order to keep him company and add even a comma, a period, a look, an I love you to the many works and divine wonders that, in the ardor of his love, my fiat has accomplished for them. When you follow the divine fiat and his deeds, he feels your company and no longer feels alone. He feels your little act, your thought that follows his actions, and he therefore feels paid back. But if you didn't follow them, he would feel the emptiness of your presence and your deeds in the immensity of my divine will, and he would cry out with sadness, 'Where is the little girl of my divine will? I do not feel it in my actions, I do not have the pleasure of her looks that admire what I do to say a thank you. I don't hear his voice telling me I love you. Oh! That this loneliness weighs on me. And I would make you hear his groans in the depths of your heart to tell you, follow me in my works, don't leave me alone. You would hurt him by not doing your deeds in my divine will, while by following them, you would do him good by keeping him company. If you knew how pleasant this company is, you would be more attentive. Just as my divine fiat would feel the absence of your deeds if you did not follow him. You too would feel the emptiness of his deeds in your will. You would feel alone, without the company of my divine will who loves to live so much in you. So you will feel that your will no longer lives in you. I felt in the immensity of the light of the divine fiat, and could see in this light the whole creation coming out of it aligned as for a birth. In his desire to revel in his works, he seemed to be in the act of creating them and always creating them while preserving them. And my kind Jesus, manifesting himself out of me, in the act of looking at creation to glorify oneself with his works, says to me, "My daughter, how beautiful is creation! How it glorifies us, how it magnifies the power of our fiat! It is nothing but a single act of our divine will. Although we can see many things, all different from each other, They are merely the effect of its single act, which never ceases and contains its continuously operating act. Our deed has by nature, by its exclusive property, light, the immensity and multiplicity of countless effects. So it's no wonder that, when our Fiat formed its single act, he came out of it. The immensity of the heavens, the very bright sunlight, the vastness of the immense sea, the strength of the wind, the beauty of flowers, species of all kinds, and a power such that, as if creation were only a small breath, a light feather, our Fiat holds it suspended, without any support, contained only in its creative force. Oh! Power of my Fiat, how unsurpassable and unattainable you are! You should know that it is only in a soul where my divine will reigns, since it reigns in all creation, that the soul unites with the one act of my will in creation to receive the deposit of all the goods performed in it. In fact, this great machine of the universe was made to be given to the creature. But to the creature who would let our divine will reign. It's right that we do not go beyond our established design, and that the creature recognize and receive our gift. But how to receive it if she is not in our house? That is, if it is not in our divine will? It would lack the ability to receive it, and the space to contain it. Therefore, only the soul that possesses my divine will can receive it. My will finds its delights in this unique act. As she was in the act of creating for the love of this soul, she makes him feel his continual act of creation. From the heavens, the sun and of everything. She told him, "See how much I love you. It is only for you that I continue to create all these things. To receive something from you in return, I use your actions as materials to extend the heavens, as light materials to form the Sunday, and so on for everything else. The more you do acts in my Fiat, the more you administer the material to me to form in you a greater number of beautiful things. Therefore, may your flight into my will never stop. It will be an opportunity for me to always operate in you." After which I continued my actions in the divine will, making my own all his deeds performed in creation and redemption. I offered them to the Divine Majesty as the most beautiful gift I could give her. In recognition of my amour, I thought to myself, "Oh! How I would like to have a sky, a sun, a sea, the flowers of the earth and all that exists all of my own. To be able to give my Creator a sky, a sun that would be mine, a sea and flowers that would all say, 'I love you, I love you, I adore you.'" I was thinking this when my beloved Jesus, hugging me, said to me, "My daughter, for the one who lives in my will, everything belongs to her. His will is one with ours. So what is ours is hers. Therefore, you can tell us in all truth. I give you my sky, my sun, and all things." The love of the creature rises in our love and is placed at our level. In our divine Fiat, the creature reproduces our love, our light, our power, our happiness, and our beauty. We feel loved, not only with our own redoubled love, but of a powerful love that delights us and makes us happy. We feel loved by such love by the creature that lives in our will. And out of love for her, we love all creatures of a love twice as strong. Because in our Fiat, the creature's act loses its life and ours becomes its own. Our act has the source of light, power, and love, the source of happiness and beauty. The soul can double, triple multiply our sources as many times as it wants. As she is in our will, we let her do it, we give her all freedom, because everything she does remains with us. Nothing comes out of our divine and infinite confines. There is therefore no danger that our goods can receive the lesser evil. Therefore, if you always abide in our divine will, what is ours is yours, and being yours, you can give us anything you want. I then felt saddened by many things that need not be said here. My adorable Jesus added, "My daughter, courage, I do not want you to be saddened, and I want to see in your soul the peace and joy of the heavenly homeland. I want your very nature to exhale the fragrance of divine will, which is all peace and happiness. My will would not feel good in you, and as troubled in her light and happiness. If eternal peace and happiness were not in you. And then, don't you know that the one who lives in my divine fiat forms two arms? One is immutability, the other firmness in continual action. With these two arms, she embraces God in such a way that he cannot free himself from the creature, especially since he likes to see it attached to him. Therefore, you have no reason to grieve, regardless of the circumstances. Because you have God all to you. Let your only concern be to live in this fiat. Who gave you life? To form life in you. I take care of everything else. I felt all worried about the divine fiat. 1,000 thoughts occupied my mind about what my sweet Jesus had said, especially about his reign. And I was like, but, does the divine will reign on earth now? Is it true that it is everywhere, that there is not a point where it does not exist? But does it have its scepter, its absolute power among creatures? And my mind wandered among all these thoughts. My kind Jesus manifested himself out of me and said to me, "My daughter, my divine will reigns. She can be compared to me, the eternal Word, who, coming down from heaven, locked me in the womb of my heavenly mother. Who knew anything about it? No one, not even Saint Joseph, knew, at the beginning of my conception, that I was already among them. Only my inseparable mother knew everything. Thus the great prodigy of my descent from heaven on earth had actually taken place. While in my immensity I existed everywhere, heaven and earth immersed in me, I was enclosed with my person in the womb of the Immaculate Queen. No one knew me. I was ignored by all. Thus, my daughter, this is the first step in the parallel between I, Divine Word, when I descended from heaven, and my divine will who takes his first steps to come and reign on earth. Just as I directed my first steps to the Virgin Mother, my will directs its first steps in you. As she asked you for your will and you abandoned it to her, she immediately formed her first act of conception in your soul as she manifested her knowledge, administering her to you her numerous and divine sips. She formed her life and gave the beginning to the formation of her kingdom. But for a very long time, who knew anything about it? Person, it was just you and me. After some time, my representative, the one who led you, became aware of what was happening in you, symbol of my representative, Saint Joseph, who was to appear as my father before the creatures, and who, before I came out of the womb, had the great honor and gift of knowing that I was already among you. After this first step, I took the second. I was born in Bethlehem, and I was recognized and visited by the shepherds of the place. But they were not influential people and they kept to themselves the wonderful news that I had already come to earth. Therefore, they did not try to make me known, to spread my news everywhere, and I continued to be the hidden Jesus unknown to all. But although unknown, I was already among them. Symbol of my divine will. Many times, other among my representatives have come to you, from near and far. And they heard the wonderful news of the reign of my divine will. Knowledge about it, and how much she wants to be recognized. But some due to a lack of influence. The others for lack of will. Did not take it upon themselves to spread it and it remained unknown and ignored, although it already existed among them. Because it is not known, it does not reign. She reigns only in you. Out as I was only with my heavenly mother and my nurturing father, Saint Joseph. The third step of my coming to earth is exile. This happened because of the visit of the Magi who aroused the interest of a few who started looking for me. This made Herod fearful and, instead of joining them to visit me, he wanted to conspire against me to kill me and I was forced to leave in exile. Symbol of my divine will, it often happens that an interest is awakened, that we want to make it known by publishing it. But nothing. Some are afraid. Others are afraid to compromise themselves, others do not want to sacrifice themselves. Sometimes under one pretext, sometimes under another, everything ends with words, my divine will remains exiled, far from the hearts of creatures. And just as I did not leave for heaven, but in my exile I remained among the creatures. It was only with my Divine Mother and with Saint Joseph, who knew me very well, that I formed their paradise on earth, while for others it was as if I did not exist. In the same way, having formed his life in you with all the procession of his knowledge, if he does not receive the effects, the purpose for which he has made himself known, how can my fiat leave? In fact, when we decide to do a work, a good, no one can stop us. Despite the exile and the fact that it is hidden, just as I did. Living my public life and making myself known after 30 years of hidden life. My divine will no longer be able to remain always hidden. But he will get to make himself known to reign among the creatures. Therefore, be attentive and appreciate the great gift of my divine will in your soul. I felt all abandoned in the divine fiat, following and offering all its acts of creation and redemption. Having arrived at the conception of the word, I said to myself, how I would like, in the divine will, to make my own the conception of the word. In order to be able to offer the Supreme Being love, glory, and satisfaction as if the word were conceived again. I was thinking this when my sweet Jesus, manifesting himself in me, said to me, my daughter, in my divine will the soul has everything in its power. There is nothing that our divinity has done, in creation as in redemption, of which our divine fiat does not possess the source. He does not lose any of our deeds, but he is the custodian of them. The one who possesses our divine will, possesses the source of my conception, of my birth, of my tears, of my steps, of my works, and of all things. Our actions never run out. When she remembers my design and wants to offer it, my design is renewed as if I were designed again. I am being reborn to a new birth. My tears, my sufferings, my steps, and my works are reborn for a new life and repeat the great good I have done in the redemption. Thus the soul that lives in our divine will is the repeater of our actions. Because nothing in the creation of what was created, was scattered. Thus all of the redemption is continually reborn. But who inspires us to do so? Who gives us the opportunity to use our sources, to renew our works? The one who lives in our will. By virtue of my will the creature participates in our creative power. Thus it can revive everything to a new life. With her deeds, offerings and supplications, she continually sets our sources in motion. These moved as by a pleasant breeze, form waves. Overflowing with our actions, they multiply and grow infinitely. Our springs are symbolized by the sea. If the wind does not agitate it, if the waves are not formed, the waters do not overflow and the cities are not watered. It is the same with our sources and all our works. If our divine fiat does not want to move them, or if the one who lives in him does not think of forming a breeze with his actions, even if they are full to the brim, they do not overflow outside to multiply their goods for the benefit of creatures. Moreover, for the one who lives in our divine fiat, her deeds, as she forms them, ascend to the beginning from which the creature came. They do not stay at the bottom, but they rise very high in search of the bosom of the one from which came the first act of his existence. These acts surround the beginning, which is God, as divine acts. Seeing the creature's actions in his divine will, God recognizes them as his own and feels loved and glorified as he wills, by his own love and glory. I was doing my round in creation. I followed the deeds of the divine fiat. From Eden to the descent of the divine word on earth. As I did this, I thought to myself, and why didn't the reign of the divine will come to earth before the Son of God came down from heaven? And my sweet Jesus, enjoying what I thought. Or rather, it seems to me that when he wants to talk to me, he gives me the reflections. He raises doubts and difficulties in me, and the desire to know many things about his kingdom. Whereas when he does not want to speak to me, my mind is mute, I am unable to think about anything, and I walk the acts of the divine will in his light. Then my kind Jesus, manifesting himself in me, said to me, my daughter, the reign of my divine will could not come to earth before I came. Because there was no humanity that possessed, as far as possible for a creature, the fullness of my divine fiat. Without it, there was no right to grant it to either the divine order or the human order. Heaven was closed. The two wills, the human and the divine, seemed to look at each other with a scowling look. The man felt unable to ask for such a great good. So much so that he didn't even want to think about it. In all righteousness, God was unable to give it to him. Before I came to earth, God and the creature were to each other like the sun and the earth. The earth does not possess the germ by which, by watering it, it can form the offspring to give the plant of this seed. The sun, not finding the offspring, cannot communicate the effects it possesses to form, from its invigorating virtue, the form and development of this plant. The earth and the sun are then like strangers to each other. It can be said, if they were right, that they look at each other with an evil eye. Because the earth cannot produce or receive such a great good. And the sun can't give it to him. Such was the state of humanity without the germ of my fiat. If there is no seed, it is futile to hope for a plant. With my coming to earth, the divine word was clothed in human flesh. By this, he formed the graft with the tree of humanity. My humanity lent itself to serve as the seed of the eternal word. My divine will formed the new graft with my human will. I was the head of all human generations. Thus, with justice, on the human side as well as on the divine side, they were able to receive the reign of my divine will, and God could give it. When a graft is placed, it assimilates the strength of new humors. Not immediately, but little by little. Therefore, at the very beginning it gives little fruit. As it forms, the fruits increase, become larger and tastier, until the whole tree is formed, loaded with branches and fruits. This is the graft placed by me on the tree of humanity. About 2000 years have passed and humanity has not received all the moods of my graft. But there are reasons for hope because the germ, the graft, is there. Therefore the creature can ask for it. Now God can give him because my humanity possessed my divine will by nature by virtue of the Word made flesh. Thus my humanity has restored the rights to man and to God. That is why everything I have done in the redemption is nothing but preparation, watering and cultivation. So that this celestial graft develops. Posed by me between the two wills, the human will and the divine will. How could the reign of the divine will have come before I came on earth? If they were missing the graft, the principle of his life, his actions in operation in the soul and his first act in the act of human work, in order to extend his kingdom in each of their acts. My divine fiat, with its power and immensity, extended its empire everywhere. However, he was not present in the human will as a principle of life, but only in power and immensity. This was the condition in which the sun and the earth find themselves. The sun coats the earth with its light and also gives its effects. But the earth does not become the sun and the sun does not become the earth. Because the sun and the earth are not merged together in such a way as to form life in each other. Therefore they remain foreign bodies that do not look alike. The sun illuminates it, warms it, communicates its admirable effects. But he does not communicate his life and the earth does not give up his right to life in the sun. So the earth will always be the earth and the sun will always be the sun. This is the state in which my divine will was and still is as long as man does not abandon his will and mine. My will not be able to place its principle of life in the human will. The fusion of one with the other will not be able to take place, the creature will always be the creature. Without the likeness and life of his creator in the depths of his soul. That only my divine fiat can form. Consequently, there will always be dissimilarity and distance. Even if my divine will illuminates it and communicates to it its admirable effects. Out of kindness and generosity, and by virtue of the power and immensity that it possesses by nature. Especially since, by sinning, by doing his human will, Adam has not only formed the worm in the wood at the root of the tree of humanity, but he added the graft, A graft that communicated all the bad moods that over the centuries Adam's graft would produce in the tree of mankind. In the beginning, a graft can produce neither great good nor great evils, but only the beginning of evil and good. In fact, Adam has not committed the many evils of human generations, but he only did the graft. Yet he was the cause of the torrents of evil, as he did not immediately have the opposite graft of my coming to earth. But that centuries and centuries were to pass. Thus, bad moods continued to grow. The evils were multiplying, and one could not even think of the kingdom of my divine will. When I came to earth, with my conception, I formed in the tree of humanity the opposite graft. Thus the evils began to cease, the bad moods to be destroyed. Thus, all the hope is there that the kingdom of my divine will be formed among human generations. The many truths about my divine Fiat that I have manifested to you are sips of life that sometimes water, sometimes cultivate and grow the moods of the tree of humanity grafted by me. The life of my divine Fiat has entered the tree of my humanity and formed the graft. So there is every reason to hope that my kingdom will have its scepter, his just reign and his command among creatures. Therefore, pray and do not doubt. I am as if absorbed in the sweet enchantment of the omnipotent Fiat. I can only see his actions to place my I love you as a seal on each of them in order to ask for the reign of his divine will among the creatures. I saw in my mind a Ferris wheel of light that covered the whole earth. The center of the wheel was just light. Many rays came out all around like so many acts performed by the divine Fiat. I went from one to the other to place the seal of my I love you and leave him on every ray, continually asking for the reign of his divine will. I was doing this when my ever-kind Jesus, manifesting himself out of me, he said to me, "My daughter, for the one who lives in my divine will and forms her acts in it, these acts remain the work of the creature. They commit God to give him the rights of such a holy kingdom, and therefore the rights to make him known and to make him reign on the earth. In fact, the soul that lives in my Fiat acquires again all the acts of my Fiat performed for the love of creatures. God makes her the conqueror, not only of her will, but of all creation. There is no act of my creation where the creature does not place his act, even a I love you, and I adore you, etc. Having thus placed something of herself, everything remains linked, and my Fiat feels happy to have finally found the creature to whom it can give what with so much love he wanted to give since the very beginning of the creation of the whole universe. Therefore, living in my divine will, the creature enters into the divine order, becomes the owner of his works. In law, she can give and ask for others what belongs to her. And as she lives in my divine will, her rights are divine, not human. Each of her actions is a call she makes to her Creator. With her most divine empire, she said to him, "Give me the kingdom of your divine will, so that I can give it to the creatures in order to that he may reign among them and that all may love you with divine love, and be all reordered in you. You should know that every time you make your round in my will to place something of you in it, you acquire one more divine right to ask for such a holy kingdom. That's why, when you make your round, all the works of creation come before you and all those of the redemption surround you, in the expectation of receiving, each in turn, your act, to give you the reward of the act of our works. You continue to follow them one after the other, to recognize them, kiss them, place your little I love you and your kiss of love, to acquire them for you. In our Fiat there is neither yours nor mine between the Creator and the creature. Everything is in communion. Therefore, by right, she can ask for anything she wants. Oh! How sad and distressed I would feel if, among so many of my sufferings and deeds performed when I was on earth, the little girl of my divine will did not even recognize them and did not try to place around my act the procession of his love and his act. How could I give you the right to do so if you didn't recognize them? And even less could you make them hold. Recognition of our works is not only a right that we give, but a possession. Therefore, if you want my divine will to reign, always runs our fiat, recognizes all our works, from the smallest to the largest. Place your act in each of them, and everything will be granted to you. My abandonment in the fiat continues. It seems to me that all of creation and the many works it contains are my dear sisters, but so well linked to me that we are inseparable. For one is the will that drives us. All that Jesus did on earth forms my life. I feel like I'm kneading with Jesus in all his deeds. So I felt surrounded. At the center of all things I could see my sweet Jesus. Taciturn he was nevertheless in the midst of many works. But everything was silence and he had no one to say a word to. The most beautiful works were silent for him. Then, pulling me to him, he said to me, "My daughter, I am the center of all creation, but a alone center. Everything is around me, everything depends on me. But since created things have no reason, they don't keep me company. They give me glory, they honor me, but they do not break my loneliness. The heavens do not speak, the sun is mute. The sea is tumult with its waves, whispers tacitly, but it does not speak. It is the word that breaks loneliness. Two beings who, through words, exchange their thoughts, their affections, and what they want to do. This is the most beautiful joy, the purest celebration, the sweetest company. Their secrets, manifested in words, form the dearest harmony. And if these two beings merge in their feelings, in their affections, and that one sees his will in the other, it is the most pleasant thing because one sees his life in the other. It is a great gift that the word. It is an outpouring of the soul, an outpouring of love. It is the door to communication, the exchange of joys and sorrows. The word is the crowning glory of the works. In fact, who formed and crowned the work of creation? The word of our fiat. When he spoke, the wonders of our works arose, some more beautiful than the others. The word formed the most beautiful crown for the work of the redemption. Oh! If I had not spoken, the gospel would not exist and the church would have nothing to teach people. The great gift of the word is more valuable than the whole world. Also, daughter of my divine will, do you want to know who breaks my loneliness in the midst of so many of my works? The one who lives in my divine will. She comes in the middle of this circle, and she talks to me. She tells me about my works. She tells me that she loves me for everything created. She opens her heart to me and tells me about her most intimate secrets. She tells me about my divine fiat and her sorrow at not seeing him reign. And my heart, listening to him, feels in his own love and sorrow. He feels represented again. As she speaks, my divine heart swells with love, with joy. Unable to contain it. I open my mouth and I speak abundantly. I open my heart and spread my innermost secrets in his heart. I speak to him of my divine will, which is the sole purpose of all our works. As I speak to him, I feel a real company. But a company that speaks. Not a silent company. A company that understands me. That makes me happy, and in whom I can confide. Has not all that I have manifested to you on my divine will been an outpouring of love? A transfusion of life, which took place between us and who, when I spoke to you, served to rejoice and to form the sweetest and most pleasant company? A soul that lives in my divine will is everything to me. It compensates for the silence of my works towards me. She speaks to me for all. It makes me happy. I don't feel alone anymore. By having someone to give the great gift of my word to, I am no longer left there as the silent Jesus who has no one to say a single word to. I am then the Jesus who speaks and has his company. But when I want to speak, if my fiat is not present, I will not be understood. After which my poor little spirit continued to wander in the divine fiat. My kind Jesus added, "My daughter, My divine will simplifies the creature. It empties it of so many things that do not belong to my will. Thus there remains of the human being only a complex of simplicity. Simple are the look, the word, the manners, the steps. We can see in it, as in a mirror, the mark of divine simplicity. Therefore, when my divine will reigns over the earth, pretense, lying, that one can say to be at the origin of evil, will no longer exist. Simplicity, the origin of all true good, will be the true characteristic that will show that here reigns the divine will. You must know that our love for the one who allows herself to be dominated by our divine fiat is so great that everything we want the creature to do, either first formed in God Himself, and then passes into it. And as His will and ours are one, it retains this act as its own, and she repeats it to us as many times as we want. The one who lives in our divine will is thus the bearer of our works, that it copies and repeats continuously. With this eye of light that she possesses, gift of our divine will, she fixes her gaze on her Creator to see what He is doing, in order to be able to absorb it in her to tell her, I don't want to do anything other than what your adorable Majesty does. And we feel doubly happy. Not that we are not happy without the creature, for in us happiness is our nature, but because we see the happy creature, by virtue of our will, it is close to our likeness. She loves with our love and it glorifies us with our works. We feel that the creative power of our fiat reproduces us and forms our life and works in the creature. The divine fiat completely absorbs me into its light, to give me His first act of life. This light pulsates in my heart and makes me feel palpitation. Its light, its holiness, its beauty, and its creative power. My little soul seems to me to be a sponge all impregnated with these divine beats, unable to contain everything because of its smallness and feeling burned by the fiery rays of the sun of the divine fiat, she repeats spasmodically, Fiat! Fiat! Have mercy on my smallness. I can't hold all your light, I'm too small. So, you yourself, make pace in me, so that I can keep more, and I am no longer suffocated by this light that I cannot fully embrace, so that I can contain it in my little soul. I was thinking this when my sweet Jesus said to me, my little girl, courage. It is true that you are too small, but you should know that only the little ones enter and live in the light of my divine fiat. For every act these little ones do in my divine will, they suffocate theirs. Thus they grant a sweet death to the human will. Because in mine, there is no place or place to let it operate. The human will has neither reason nor right. It loses its value before a reason and a right of a divine will. What happens between the divine will and the human will is comparable to a little boy who, on his own, seems capable of saying and doing something. But placed before someone who possesses all the sciences and all the arts, the poor little one loses his value, remains silent and unable to do anything. He remains fascinated and enchanted by the kind speech and skill of the scholar. My daughter, this is what happens. The little one without the big one feels like he can do something. But in front of the big one, he feels smaller than he is. Even more so when he is in front of the height and immensity of my divine will. Now you must know that whenever the soul operates in my divine will, she empties herself of her own end. It forms so many doors through which mine can enter. It's like a house that has an inner sun. The more doors it has, the more the rays can come out through those doors. Or it's like a piece of metal with holes that would be placed in front of the sun. The more holes it has and the more each small hole is filled with light and has the ray of light. Such is the soul. The more acts she performs in my divine will, the more inputs she gives her, to the point of becoming all irradiated by the light of my divine fiat. After that, I continued my round in creation, to follow in it the acts of the fiat supreme. My sweet Jesus added, My daughter, there are A great difference between the creation of the whole universe and the creation of man. In the first, there was our act of creation and preservation. After everything had been ordered and harmonized, we did not add anything new. On the other hand, in the creation of man, there was not only the act of creation and preservation, but the active act was added to him and of an ever new activity. This is because man was created in our image and likeness. The Supreme Being is a new continual act. Man must also possess the new act of his Creator, who must resemble him in a certain way. Our active act of continual novelty was inside and outside of him. By virtue of this our active act man can be and always is. New in his thoughts. New in his words. New in his works. How many new things are not coming out of humanity? Man does not produce his new act continuously, but at intervals. This is because he does not let himself be dominated by my divine will. How beautiful man's creation was! There was our creative act, our act of preservation and our acting act. We have infused into him, as life, our divine will in his soul, and created our love as the blood of his soul. That's why we love it so much. For it is not only our work, like the rest of creation, but it really owns a part of our lives. We feel in him the life of our love. How can we not love him? Who doesn't love their own things? And not to love them would be unnatural. Therefore, our love for man is incredible. The reason is clear. We love it because he came out of us. He is our child, and a birth of our very being. And if man does not respond to our love, if he does not abandon his will to us to preserve ours, he is more than barbaric and cruel to its Creator and towards himself. Because without recognizing his Creator and without loving him, he forms a labyrinth of miseries, weaknesses, inside and outside of himself. He loses his true happiness. By rejecting our divine will, he keeps a distance from his Creator. Destroys the principle of its creation. Consumes the blood of our love in his soul. To let the poison of her human will flow into her. Consequently, until our will is recognized and forms his kingdom among creatures, man will always remain a disordered being and without the likeness of the one who created him. I am still in the holy legacy of the divine Fiat. The more I penetrate into him, the more I am inclined to love him, the more I move in him, the more he reveals himself. The more he makes himself known. He said to me, "Live always in the precious inheritance that was given to you with so much love. It belongs to you. He will always be yours, inseparable from you. I will never allow my little girl not to feel palpitation of my light, the breath of my balsamic breath, the life of my divine will." While my little mind wandered in the divine will, my kind Jesus, coming out of this light of the divine Fiat, said to me, "My daughter, the sun possesses the strength of the unity of its light, a gift of its Creator. Thus, its light is not subject separation, not even to the dispersion of a single drop of its light. Therefore, by virtue of this unit of light that the sun possesses, it is nothing that it touches or wears to which it does not give its precious effects. The sun seems to play with the earth. He gives his kiss of light to every creature, to every plant. He embraces everything with his warmth. It seems to blow and communicate colors, sweetness, flavors. It grants its effects in abundance, however. He jealously guards the slightest drop of all this light he possesses for himself. Why is that? Because he wants retain the rights of its creation and do not scatter anything of what God has given him. Oh! If the sun scattered its light, it would eventually happen that, little by little, the sun would no longer be sun. The first rights of the creation of all things, including man, are sacred, just and saints. In all fairness, all should stand by the first act, as they were created. Only man could not retain the great honor of the way in which he was created by God. It cost him a lot. For this reason all the evils fell on him. Now, my daughter, the one who lives in my divine will, has the rights of her creation. It lives in the unity of its creator, better than the sun. It reproduces the effects of divine unity. In this unity, she brings everything together, embraces everything and warms everyone. By the breath of divine unity, it produces in the hearts of creatures all the effects that the kingdom of grace possesses. Better than the sun it plays and touches everything. Through her touch, she brings holiness, virtue, love, divine sweetness. She would like to lock everything and all in the unity of her Creator. Even if she wants to give everything, she jealously retains the rights of her creation. That is, the will of his Creator as his first act and the origin of his creation. She says to everyone, I can't get off the inside of the divine fiat. I also don't want to lose a single drop of it. Because then I would lose my rights and I don't want to do that. Rather, it is up to you to come, and the will of all will be one. In this way we will all live a common life. But as long as you remain below, at the level of the human will, like the sun, I will give you the effects of the divine will. However, his life will always be mine. I will pray waiting for you in the will of our Creator. The soul that lives in my will is the true sun, in whom one apparently sees nothing but light and we feel nothing but heat. But what goods is there not inside in addition to light and heat? How many effects? The life and goods of the earth are contained in light and heat. In the same way, with the one who lives in my divine fiat, one sees in appearance only a creature, but inside is a divine will, which sustains everything heaven and earth, and who does not want to leave inactive the one who has such a great good? I was worried about the publication of the divine will. I would have liked at all costs to prevent certain things about me, and many other things that my beloved Jesus had told me, from being published. It was like an iron in my soul that penetrated to the marrow of my bones. And I thought, my blessed Jesus could have started by talking about his adorable will, and then about everything else. He would have spared me this suffering that pierces me. I was thus pouring out my bitterness when my ever-kind Jesus, all goodness, hugged me and said to me, my daughter, courage, do not lose the peace. Peace is my perfume, my air, the effect that my breath produces. So in the soul where there is no peace, I do not feel in my royal palace. I am not comfortable. My divine will, which is peace by nature, feels like the sun when the clouds approach and prevent the light from shining all over the earth. It can be said that when the soul is not at peace, regardless of the circumstances, it is for her a rainy day. The sun of my will is no longer able to communicate to him his life, his warmth, his light. Therefore, calm down, and do not form clouds in your soul. They hurt me and I can't say. I am in this creature with my eternal peace, my joys, and with the light of my heavenly homeland. Daughter of my divine will, you must know that I am the order. Therefore all my works are ordered. See how orderly creation is. The reason for creation was man. Yet I did not create man first. I would not have been ordained if I had. Where to put this man? Where to place it? Without the sun that was to illuminate it. Without the pavilion of heaven which was to serve as his room. Without the plants that would feed him, everything was messy. My fiat reordered and created all things. After forming the most wonderful abode, he created man. Doesn't the order of your Jesus appear in this? So I had to maintain this order for you too. Although our first purpose was to make you know our divine will, that she may reign in you as a king in her royal palace, and that by giving you his divine lessons you may be the herald who would make it known to others. It was necessary, however, as in creation, to prepare the heaven of your soul, to constellate it with the stars of all the splendid virtues that I have manifested to you. I had to go down to the lower level of your human will, in order to empty it, to purify it, to beautify it and to reorder everything in it. One could say that these were all new creations that I was making in you. I had to make the old disordered earth disappear from your human will to recall in the depths of your interior the order of the divine Fiat. This one making disappear the ancient earth of your whole being, would make rise again from the heavens, the suns, the seas of truth surprising by its creative force. And you know how all this came to an end through the cross. Separating yourself from everything. Making you live on earth as if it were not for you the earth, but the sky. By always keeping you absorbed, either in me or in the Son of my divine Fiat. Therefore, all that I did in you was nothing but the necessary order. To give you the great gift of my divine will. As it was given to the first man at the beginning of his creation. And that's why there were so many preparations. For they were to serve the man who was to receive the great gift of our will as a beloved inheritance, symbol of the great preparations made in your soul. Therefore, love my dispositions and thank me for being faithful. My redemption is another example that shows the need to perform secondary works in order to be able to succeed in forming the first works whose purpose has been set. My descent to earth to take human flesh was precisely that. To raise up humanity and give to my divine will the rights to reign in this humanity. Because by reigning in my humanity, the rights of both sides, the human and the divine, were restored again. It can be said, however, that I did not say anything about it, except a few words. To make it clear that I had come into the world only to do the will of the Heavenly Father to show His great importance. D. In another circumstance, I said, those who do the will of my Father are my mother, my sisters, and belong to me. As for the rest, I kept silent, while the goal was precisely that, to constitute the kingdom of my divine will among the creatures. In fact, He was just. That I not only put the creatures in safety, but that I also place my divine will in safety. By giving Him back His rights over all flesh, as I had given Him over mine otherwise, there would have been a disorder in the work of redemption. How could I? To secure the creatures, and let our divine rights, those of our Fiat, go adrift and fall into ruin. That was not possible. But even if the primary purpose was to settle all the accounts of my divine will. As a celestial doctor, I agreed to do healings. I spoke of forgiveness, of detachment. I have instituted sacraments. I endured excruciating suffering, to the point of death. It can be said that it was the new creation that I was preparing so that the creatures may receive my divine will as queen in the midst of her people, and let her reign. This is what I did with you first. I have prepared you. I have spoken to you of crosses, of virtues, of love, to be prepared to listen to the lessons of my Fiat so that, knowing Him, you will love Him. So that, feeling in you the great benefits of His life, you then want to give His life to all. By making Him known and loved, and let Him reign. The continual privations of my sweet Jesus pained me a lot. Without Him, I missed everything. With Jesus, everything is mine, everything belongs to me. It seems to me that I am in the house of Jesus. And He, gently, with admirable kindness, said to me, all that is mine is yours. Better yet, I don't want you to tell me your sky, your sun, all your created things. Instead, you have to tell me, our sky, our sun, our creation. In fact, in my divine will, you created with me. And continuing your life in it, you offered yourself with me by preserving it. Therefore, my daughter, everything is yours. Everything is ours. If you do not consider that what is mine belongs to you fully, you keep a distance. You show that you are not one with the heavenly family. That you do not live in the house of your divine Father, and you would break the family bond with your Jesus. Thus, without Him, I feel rejected from His family, out of His house, and oh, what a terrible and painful change I feel in my poor soul. I feel deprived of the one who, alone, can give me life. I experience true surrender and what it means to be without Jesus. Oh, how this exile weighs on me, and I feel very keenly this extreme need of my heavenly homeland. Many oppressive thoughts flooded my mind, wounding my poor little soul and leading her, so to speak, to the last agony. Then my dear life, my sweet Jesus, rose like a Sunday. Oppressive thoughts fled. In a very gentle tone, he said to me, "My daughter, courage. Don't let yourself be beaten down. Don't you know that you have to walk your way in my divine will? And that road is long. These oppressions, these thoughts that flood you, are stops that you make. Although you don't leave the road, the journey you should be making is somewhat stopped. Your Jesus does not want this backward step. He wants you to walk always, without ever stopping. In fact, you need to know that every step you take in my divine will is a life you take. Also, one step less, it is a life that is not formed. And you deprive our Supreme Being glory, love, happiness and satisfaction that another life like ours can give us. If you knew what it means to give us glory, love, happiness of our very life, with the power of our own will. When the happy creature possesses the great good of living in it, we feel delighted. His force of delight is so great that we belocate our divine being to enclose it in the step, in the act, in the little love of the creature, to have the very high satisfaction of receiving, through it, our life, our glory and all our property. Therefore, when you always walk in our will, we feel the sweet enchantment of the delight you give us. While if you do not walk, we do not feel this sweet enchantment of your delight, the sweet sound of your footsteps. And we say, the little girl of our divine will does not work, and we do not feel within us the sweet enchantment of his deeds. And I quickly rebuke you by telling you, girl, walk, don't stop. Our Fiat is a continual movement, and you have to follow it. So you have to know the big difference between the one who lives in our divine will and the one who, resigned and according to the circumstances, makes our divine will. For the first, it is divine lives that she offers us by her actions. The other, by acting, acquires the effects of our will. We don't feel within ourselves our delightful force that enchants us in its actions, but only the effects. Not the totality of our love, but a particle. Not the source of our happiness, but only a shadow. And between life and effects, there is a big difference. I began in my usual way my round in the divine will. I wanted to reorder in God all the created intelligences, from the first to the last man who will come to earth. I said, I place my I love you on every thought of the creature in order to that in every thought I can ask for the reign of the divine Fiat over every intelligence. Thinking this, I thought to myself, how can I adorn every thought of the creature with my I love you? My sweet Jesus was manifesting himself in me, and he said to me, my daughter, with my will, you can do and achieve anything. You must know that before sin, in every look, thought, step, word, and heartbeat, man gave his act to God, and God gave his continual act to man. His condition was thus to always give to his Creator and to always receive from him. There was such harmony between the Creator and the creature that, on both sides, one could not be without giving and without receiving. If only a thought, a look. Therefore, every thought of man sought God. And God was running to fill his mind with grace and holiness, light and life, divine will. It can be said that man's smallest act loved and recognized the one who had given him life. God loved him in return by giving him his love and making his divine will grow in every act of man, big or small. It was not possible for him to receive the divine will once because he was too small. God gave it to him in small sips. In every act he performed for the sake of himself, having his delights to give him always in order to form in man his divine will. Therefore, every thought and every act poured into God, and God poured into him. This was the true order of creation. Find his Creator in man, in each of his acts. So that his Creator could give him his light and what he had established to give him. Our divine will, present in us and in him, was a carrier of the whole, and, forming in man in broad daylight, she pooled the goods of the two. How happy was man's condition when the divine will reigned in him. It can be said that he grew up on our paternal knees, attached to our breast, from where he drew growth and formation. That is why I want that, in my divine will, every thought of the creature has your I love you to bring order back between the Creator and the creature. In fact, you must know that by sinning, man did not only reject our fiat, but broke the love with the one who had loved him so much. He placed himself at a distance from his Creator. A distant love cannot form life because true love feels the need to be nourished by the love of the beloved and to stay so close that it is impossible to be separated from it. Thus, the life of love created by us in creating man has remained foodless and almost dying. Even more, since the acts performed without our divine will were as many nights as he formed in his soul. If he thought, it was a night that he formed. If he looked, spoke, etc., all was darkness that formed a deep night. Without my fiat, there can be no day or sun. At most, a very small flame that can barely guide his steps. Oh! If they knew what it means to live without my divine will, even if they were not bad and did some good. The human will is always a night for the soul. Who oppresses him, fills it with bitterness and makes him feel the weight of life. Therefore, be attentive and do not let anything escape that does not enter into my divine fiat. What will make you see the full light of day and will bring back the order of creation? This will restore the harmony that will implement the continual gift of your deeds and the continual reception of your Creator. Embracing the whole human family, you can ask for the order in which they were created to return, so that the night of human will may cease, and that the full day of my divine will may rise. My little mind wandered in the supreme fiat. I thought, what can be the difference between the one who founded his holiness in the virtues, and the one who founded it only in the divine will? My sweet Jesus, manifesting himself in me, said to me with a sigh, my daughter, if you knew how big the difference is. Listen and you know it yourself. The flowering earth is magnificent, the variety of plants, flowers, fruits, trees. The diversity of colors, flavors, everything is wonderful. But could you find a single plant, a single flower, not even the most precious, which is not surrounded by earth? Since the earth keeps its roots on its lap, attached to its breast to feed them, it can be said that it is impossible for man to have a plant that he does not entrust to his mother the earth. Such is holiness founded in virtues. The human earth must put something of its own into it. How many human satisfactions! In the most holy works, in the virtues they practice, the land of esteem, of human glory, is still their end, forms its small receptacle, so that the virtues seem so many beautiful fragrant flowers with bright colors that arouse admiration, but around them, and below them, there is always a little something of human earth. Thus holiness based on virtues can be called an earthly flowering. According to the virtues they practice, some form the flower, these the plant, others the tree. Must water to water them, of the sun to fertilize them and communicate to them the different effects necessary for each of them, that is to say my grace. Otherwise, they would risk dying as soon as they are born. On the other hand, holiness based on my divine will is a sun. It is high. The earth has nothing to do with it and water does not need to feed its light. She draws her food directly from God. In its continual movement of light, it produces and nourishes all the virtues in a divine way. Human satisfactions, even holy ones, vainglory, self-love, have disappeared and no longer even have a reason to exist. For they clearly feel the divine will that does everything in them. They are grateful because of this divine sun, which lowers itself, dwells in them and nourishes them with its light. makes them undergo its transformation to form a single light with this divine fiat. Moreover, its light has the virtue of gently overshadowing the human will. For it is not permissible even for a single atom of the earth to enter into my divine will. These are two opposing natures. Light and earth, darkness and light. It can be said that they are running away from each other. Light cannot tolerate even one atom of the earth. Therefore it eclipses the earth and places itself as a sentinel to defend its entry so that everything in the creature can become divine will. The sun gives all things to the earth, but without receiving anything, and it is the primary cause of its magnificent blooms in the same way. Those who find their life and holiness in my will are with them the nurturers of holiness founded in virtues. After which I made my round in the divine fiat, to find all the acts of creatures, past, present, and future. To ask, in the name of all, for the reign of the divine will. I was doing this when my sweet Jesus added, "My daughter, all the good that has been done since the beginning of the world outside of my divine will represents only small lights, effects of my divine fiat. In fact, although the creatures did not act in my fiat, when they were prepared to do good, he fixed his rays on them, and at his reflections, small flames formed in their souls. Because my will being an eternal and immense light, it can only produce light. These small flames, effects of my fiat, dwell around the sun of my divine will, in honor and glory of its effects, and as fruits of the good deed of creatures. In fact, when creatures want to do good, the shelves of my fiat attach themselves to them and give them the effects of the good they want to do. It can be said that my fiat is more than a sun which, when it finds the seed in the earth, the warming of its light, caress and communicates to him the effects to form the plant of this seed. There is no good without my will. Just as there can be no color, flavor, ripening without the effects of sunlight, there can be no good without my fiat. But who can form the sun by its actions? The one who lives in my divine will. Not only my will fixes its rays on it, but it descends into it with its whole sun, its creative and life-giving virtue, and it forms another sun in the act of the creature. Do you see, then, the big difference that exists? Just like between plants and the sun, and between the sun and small flames. I felt all abandoned in the divine will. Continuing to do my deeds in her, I heard a voice whispering in my ear, "How tired I am!" I was moved by this voice and I wanted to know who could be so tired. My sweet Jesus, making himself heard in me, said to me, "My daughter is me. I feel the weight of such a long wait. This produces in me such fatigue that I feel the weight of wanting to do good, without being able to do so because of the lack of disposition of those who must receive it. Oh! How hard it is to want to do good, to have prepared it and to be ready to give it, but not to find anyone who would like to receive it. But you must know that when my fiat places itself in the act of acting, it has the same power, wisdom, immensity, and multiplicity of effects that produces a single one of its acts. If he decides to go out into his divine field of action, his act has the balance between one and the other, and contains the same value, weight, and measure. My divine will has come out in its field of action in creation, has shown a great magnificence of works. So much so that man himself is unable to count them and understand the true value of each work. And although he sees them, touches them, and receives the beneficial effects, we can nevertheless call man the first little ignorant of creation. Who can say how much light and heat the sun contains? How many effects it produces, and what is the light formed of? No one. Yet everyone sees it and feels its warmth. This is the case for everything else. My redemption goes hand in hand with creation. It possesses as many acts as creation possesses. They are in perfect balance with each other, because creation was an act of my divine will. Redemption was another act of my divine will. Another act of my divine will is the great fiat voluntas tua on earth as in heaven. In my divine fiat, many acts are ready, in such a way that they will have the triple balance of acts, the same value, the same weight and the same measure. I am forced to wait, and I feel in myself the multiplicity of these acts that I want to accomplish, without accomplishing them. Because the kingdom of my Fiat is not known and does not reign on earth. So I feel so tired that I become impatient and I say, how is it possible that they do not want to receive my benefits? And I remain dismayed because my deeds, the power of my divine will, its light, its happiness, and its beauty, do not fraternize with creatures and are not in them. Therefore, have compassion for me if you see me taciturn. It is the overflow of weariness caused by this long wait that silences me. I continued my round in the divine Fiat to unite myself with all the acts he had performed out of love for all of us, his creatures. I had reached the point where my kind Jesus humbled himself in human acts, such as suckle his mother's milk, take food, drink water, even stoop to work. I was amazed to see that Jesus, by his nature, needed nothing. He possessed within himself the creative power of all good things he had created could happen. I was thinking of this when my sweet Jesus, making himself seen and heard in me, said to me, my daughter, it is true that I did not need anything. But my love, descended from the heavens to the bottom of the earth, could not remain still or motionless. I felt the irresistible need to let out my love and love in the very acts that the creature had to do. I made them to let my love run towards her and to be able to say to her, see how much I have loved you. I wanted to descend into your smallest acts, into your necessities, into your work, into everything, to tell you that I love you, give you my love and receive your love. But do you want to know the main reason why I have lowered myself to the point of performing so many humble and human deeds? I didn't have to do them. But I did them in order to fulfill, in every act, the divine will. All things came before me. For what they were in themselves. Where they came from. Sealed by the divine Fia. I took them because the divine Fiat wanted it. It can be said that there was a competition between my divine will that, by nature, as the word of the Heavenly Father, I possessed within myself, and that same divine will spread throughout the whole of creation. Thus, in all things, I knew and saw nothing but my divine will. Food, water, work. Everything disappeared, and it was always for me my divine will that was present. And when my divine will brought me down into the human acts of creatures, I called all the human acts of each of them, so that they can receive the great gift. To see my divine will descend as the first act and life of their deeds. Oh! If creatures saw created things for what they are in themselves, their origin, who is the one who nourishes and preserves them, and who is the bearer of so many things that serve human life? Oh! How many they would love my divine will and would take the substance of the created things. But the creatures look at the exteriority of things and they therefore attach their hearts to it, feed on their bark, thus losing the substance present in every created thing, which came out of us in order to allow creatures to perform many acts of our divine will. To my sorrow, I am forced to see that the creatures do not take food and water, don't do their job to receive and fulfill my divine will, but out of necessity and to satisfy the human will. And my divine Fiat came out of their deeds, while we created so many things to place our divine will as in a bank among creatures. By not using it, they maintain it as a continual act of bankruptcy. All the good they would have to take if in all things they fulfilled and took my divine will remains lost to them. We remain with the sadness of not seeing our divine will reign as queen in all human acts of creatures. After which I continued my abandonment in the divine Fiat. I felt the great need to stay in his sea of light without ever getting out. I felt it like a heartbeat, breathing, an air that breathed life into me and kept me in order, harmony, the dissolution of my little atom in its divine sea. But while my little mind was invaded by thoughts of the divine will, my sweet Jesus added, My daughter, there is no order, rest, and true life except in my divine will. In fact, the life of each creature, its first act of life, is formed in the bosom of its creator. Then, like a birth, we take it out in the light of day. We have within us the generative virtue, the creature is our child. Thus it carries within itself the seed that generates. With this seed the creature forms many other births. By continuing to manifest her life, she forms the birth of his holy thoughts, of his chaste words, and the wonderful enchantment of his works, the gentle sound of his footsteps, bright rays of his heartbeat. All these births that are formed by creatures make their way and ascend to their Creator. To recognize Him as their Father. To love Him. To surround Him with the procession of His long descendants, like our glory and that of our generating virtue. But so that our generative virtue may be fruitful, our divine will must dominate in the birth, creature, that comes out of us. Otherwise there is the danger that this creature is transformed into brute, and loses the generating virtue of the good. If it generates, it is to generate passions, weaknesses, and vice. They lack the virtue of being able to ascend to us. In addition, these births are condemned as not belonging to us. I was thinking of the incarnation of my sweet Jesus in the womb of the Heavenly Sovereign. My sweet Jesus, manifesting himself outside of me, hugged me with inexpressible tenderness. He said to me, my daughter. Creation was such an intense and great ardor of love, that by overflowing with our divine being, it invests the entire universe and spread everywhere. And our Fiat was expressing itself and operating in this race of love that continued without being able to stop. Before spreading everywhere and giving his first kiss to all the creatures, which did not yet exist. Her love kiss was a kiss of joy, of happiness, which he printed on all generations. Our divine Fiat, who participated in this race, was not satisfied with a single kiss, but pronounced itself by forming suns, heavens, stars, seas and earth, and all that can be seen in the great emptiness of the universe. Thus, the ardor of our love in creation was an ardor, celebration of love, happiness and of joy, with which we had to play and make the delights of all creatures. By incarnating in the womb, the ardor of love, that we could no longer contain and which overflowed, followed the same course as in creation. It was an ardor of love, tenderness, compassion, of mercy. It involved the life of a God. In order to find man and give him his kisses of love, tenderness, compassion, and forgiveness. Enclosing the life of all creatures in his sea of love, she gave him the kiss of life, offering his life of love to give life to man. Our love reached excess in the incarnation, because it was not, as in creation, a love that celebrates and rejoices, but a painful, suffering and sacrificial love that gave its life to remake the life of man. But our love is not yet satisfied. Put your hand on my heart and feel as it beats, to the point that I feel it explode. Listen and hear as it bubbles, like a stormy sea, which forms gigantic waves and wants to overflow to cover everything. He wants to do his third love race. In this ardor of love, he wants to form the kingdom of my divine will. This ardor of love will unite to that of creation and to that of the incarnation, to form only one. It will be the ardor of triumphant love. She will give her kiss of triumphant love, of conquering love, of love that triumphs over everything. To give his kiss of eternal peace, his kiss of light that will put on the run the night of the human will, by raising the full day of my divine will, bearer of all goods. How I look forward to this day! Our love is bubbling so much in me that I feel the need to let it overflow. If you knew what relief I feel when letting him overflow with you. I speak to you of my divine will. The ardor of my love, which makes me delirium with fever, calms down. And feeling soothed, I set to work so that everything in your soul can be my will. Therefore, be attentive and let me do it. After which my poor spirit wandered in the love of my sweet Jesus. I saw in front of me a Ferris wheel of light that burned more than a fire, with as many rays as creatures coming in the light of day. These rays invested each creature. With delightful force, they captured them in the center of the Ferris wheel of light. There was Jesus waiting for them in the midst of his love to devour them. Not to make them die, but for them to enclose them in his little humanity in order to revive and grow them, to feed them with its devouring flames and give them a new life, a life of love. My little Jesus, who had just been born, enclosed in him the great birth of all generations. Better than a tender mother who carries within her a nascent life to bring them to the light, formed by her love. But with incredible suffering and even with his death. Then my tender Jesus, so small, the center of this abyss of flames, said to me, "Look at me and listen to me. My daughter, in the center of this abyss of flames, I breathe only flames. I feel in my breath only the flames of my devouring love that the breath of all creatures brings me. In my little heart pulsate flames that extend and capture the pulsations of all creatures to place them in my heart, and I feel all these palpitations in my little heart. Everything is flames gushing from my little hands, from my little motionless feet. Ah! How demanding my love is! In order to completely lock myself up and make me give life to all creatures, he places me in the middle of a devouring fire. Oh! How much I feel the sins, miseries, and sufferings of all creatures. I'm still small, but nothing is spared me. I can say, all evils fall in me and around me. And in the midst of these devouring flames, laden with so much suffering, I look at them all and, crying, I exclaim, my love has once again given me all creatures. He gave them to me in creation, and they escaped me. He gives them to me again by conceiving me in my mother's womb. But am I sure they won't escape me? Will they be mine forever? Oh! How happy I would be if none of them wanted to escape me. Their sufferings would be a rest for me if all my dear children, dear births out of me, conceived in my little humanity, were saved. And, crying and sobbing, I looked each of them in the face to move them with my tears. I repeated, my dear children, do not leave me, do not leave. I am your father, do not abandon me. Oh, please. Recognize me. Have mercy at least on the fire that devours me, on my burning tears. And all because of you. Because I love you too much. I love you as God. I love you as a very passionate father, I love you as my life. But do you know, little daughter of my divine will, what was the greatest concern of my love? It was to devour, in creatures, their human will. For it is at the origin of all evils. Despite all the all-consuming flames of my love, she formed clouds so as not to let herself be burned. Oh! What tortured me the most was the human will that not only formed clouds, but the most painful scenes in my humanity itself. Therefore, pray that my divine will be known and reign in the creature. Then you can call me blessed Jesus. Otherwise, my tears will not stop. I would always have a reason to cry over the fate of this poor humanity lying in the nightmare of its miserable will. My abandonment in the divine fiat continues. My dear Jesus, being seen as a very small child, in my heart or in the womb of the Heavenly Mother, but so small and of a delightful beauty, all love, his face flooded with tears. And he cries because he wants to be loved. He said to me with a sigh, ah! Ah! Why am I not loved? I want to renew in souls all the love I had incarnating, but I can't find anyone to give it to. By incarnating me, my sovereign mother let me give free rein to my love. She received in her motherly heart all the love that creatures rejected. Ah! She was the depository of my repulsed love, the sweet companion of my sufferings, and the ardent love that dried my tears. The greatest works cannot be done by oneself alone. It is necessary to be at least 2 or 3, in custodians and nourishers of the work itself. Without being nourished, works cannot have life. There is a danger that they will die as soon as they are born. This is so true that in creation, the 3 divine persons were present. Then we made the man the custodian of our work. Not yet satisfied. Because works alone do not bring happiness, we gave him the company of the woman. In the incarnation, the 3 divine persons participated. They were in my company, or rather, they were inseparable from me, in addition to the heavenly queen. She herself was the divine custodian of all the goods of the incarnation. You see so how much the company of the creature is necessary for me to form my work. A creature who would put himself at my disposal to receive the great good that I want to give him. So, do you want to be my second mom? Will you receive the great good of the renewal of my incarnation, as dowries of the kingdom of my divine Fiat? In this way, I will have 2 moms. The first, which let me form the kingdom of redemption. The second, which will let me form the kingdom of my divine will. And placing his little hands on my face, stroking me, he said, "My mom. My mom. Maternal love surpasses all love. Thus, you will love me with the unsurpassable love of a mother." After which he remained silent, wanting me to cradle him in my arms. Then he added, "My daughter, you must now know the excess of my love, where it has led me." Descending from heaven to earth. He took me to a dark and very narrow prison, which was the breast of my mom. But my love was not satisfied. He formed for me in this prison itself another dungeon, which was my humanity, which imprisoned my divinity. The first prison lasted 9 months. The second prison of my humanity lasted for me up to 33 years. But my love didn't stop there. Towards the end of the prison of my humanity, he formed for me the prison of the Eucharist. The smallest of prisons. A small host in which he imprisoned me, humanity and divinity. I agreed to be there as dead, without implying a breath, a movement or a heartbeat. And not for a few years, but until the consumption of centuries. So I went from prison to prison. They are inseparable from me. That is why I can be called the divine prisoner, the heavenly prisoner. In the first 2 prisons, in the intensity of my love, I brought the kingdom of redemption to fulfillment. In the 3rd prison of the Eucharist, I bring to fulfillment the kingdom of my divine Fiat. And that's why I called you to the prison of your bed. So that together, prisoners both, in our solitude, united together, we may lead to its fulfillment the kingdom of my will. If a mother was necessary for me for redemption, I also needed a mom for the kingdom of my Fiat. My demanding love wanted an imprisoned mother in order to keep her at my disposal. Therefore, I will be your prisoner. Not only in the small host, but also in your heart. You will be my dear prisoner. All attentive to listen to me and to break the loneliness of such a long imprisonment. And although we are prisoners, we will be happy because we will bring to maturity the kingdom of the divine will, to give it to creatures. I thought of all that my sweet Jesus, with such kindness, deigns to tell my poor soul, and which, reread according to the circumstances, shines with light. And my ever-kind Jesus said to me, "My daughter, when I speak, I release a light of truth, and I want it to be accepted and caressed by the soul. If this light is accepted and occupies in the soul a place of honor, it calls for another light. Thus, one light calls for another. Otherwise, it returns to its source. And when the soul returns to read them, if they are written, and meditate on them, my truths are like a wrought iron. When the iron is beaten, heated to red, it causes sparks of light to erupt. But if it is not beaten, iron remains a hard, black and cold metal. So it is with my truths. If the soul reads them and reads them again to remove all the substance that contain my truths which have been communicated to the soul, symbolized by iron with its darkness and coldness, it is heated to red. As you ponder these truths, she gives herself blows. She who had the benefit of hearing my truth. This one, feeling honored, sparkles with light with other truths. But if my manifested truths remain in oblivion and do not occupy a place of honor, they remain as buried. But we do not bury the living. In fact, my truths are lights that bring and possess life. Consequently, as they are not subject to death, the time will come when others will cherish them and condemn those who have kept them in oblivion and buried. If you knew how much light there is in all that I have manifested to you on my divine will, and what light would flicker if these truths were read and reread, you yourself would be amazed by all the good they would do. I then continued my deeds in the divine will. I was thinking of Jesus' loneliness in his mother's womb. Jesus added, "My daughter, how sweet and pleasant the company of the creature is for me. How my descent from heaven to earth was precisely for her. To find it, to make it my own, to keep it in my company. I feel compensated. However, be aware that the simple company of the creature that loves me and tries to break my loneliness can satisfy me. But this is not enough when it comes to the one who lives in my divine will. I then want her to always be with me, spectator of my child's tears, of my groans, my sobs, my sufferings, my work and my steps, and also of my joys. Because I want to make it the deposit in it. In fact, my will being in it, it would be too hard for me if I didn't have it continuously with me to always keep her informed of everything. My divine will feels the irresistible need to share with the creature all that she does in my humanity, so that the will that reigns in me, and that which reigns in the creature, is not a divided will. And that's why I call you in every one of my actions, and I want you to know what I have done and what I am doing so that I can give it to you and be able to say, she who lives in my divine will never leaves me. We are tied against each other and inseparable. And me, my love, your love race never stops. She runs, she always runs. I feel like I can't do my love shopping like she does. I'm too small and I can't run around to love you. My sweet Jesus added, my daughter, you too can go for love races in the immense sea of the divine will. You will do as the ship. When he wants to cross the sea, he rushes and the waters move away to let him pass. He runs and leaves behind a wake in the sea. Little by little the wake disappears and there is no trace of its passage. However, the ship has raced into the sea and it arrives where it wanted. In the same way, if the soul wants to love, it will dive into the sea of my divine fiat and it will form his love race. His race will be for eternity. It will not be for her as for the ship, who leaves nothing behind in the sea where he passed. For the waters, proud, close behind him without a trace. On the contrary, in the sea of my divine will, when the soul rushes into it to make its race, our divine waters are bubbling and in their bubbling form the furrow that does not disappear. His sign remains and shows everyone the love race of the creature in our sea. So that we can say, it is here that the one who lives in our will pass to make her race of love. For what is done in it remains indelible. In the same way, if you want to make your worship, if you want to be embellished, if you want to be sanctified, if you want to be powerful and wise, immerse yourself in our will. As you race, you will remain all love, all beautiful, all holy. You will acquire the science of who your Creator is. All your movements will be deep adorations. You will leave in our sea as many furrows as races made in the divine fiat. So much so that we will say, in this race that the little daughter of our divine will has made in our sea, it formed the furrow of holiness, and we sanctified it and it remained holy. In this other race, she plunged into the sea of our beauty and formed her furrow. We embellished it and it remained beautiful. In this other race, she formed the furrow of our knowledge, and she knew us. We talked to her and we made ourselves known by talking to her at length about our divine being. Our word bound her, identified with us. We feel the irresistible need to make us known more and more, and to give him the great gift of manifesting our truths to him. So, for every race you do in our supreme fiat, you always take from what is ours. Our bubbling love tells us about you and shows us your groceries with their bubbling as a sign that you have gone into our divine sea. I was thinking of the moment when my very sweet child Jesus, trembling with love, came out of the womb of his heavenly mother. What a joy for her to be able to hug him, kiss him, and compete in love with the one who loved her so much. But as many thoughts invaded my mind about the holy birth of the divine child, I felt him coming out of me to place himself in my arms and, stretching his little hands towards my neck, he said to me, "My daughter, you too embrace me and hold me close to you. How I kiss you and hold you close to me. Let us love each other by competing with love without ever stopping." And abandoning himself in my arms like a tiny child, he kept silent. But who can say the embraces of love and the tender kisses? I think it is better not to talk about it. Then, speaking again, he added, "My daughter, birth in time was the rebirth of my divine will and my humanity. By being reborn in me, she brought the good news of her rebirth in human generations. My fiat is eternal. But it can be said that he was born in Adam, so to speak, in order to form the long generation of rebirths in the creature. But as Adam rejected this divine will, he thus prevented the many rebirths it had to have in every creature with constant and invincible love. My divine will awaited my humanity so that he could be born again into the human family. Therefore, everything I have done throughout my life, my child's tears, my moans, and my wanderings were only rebirths of my divine will, who formed in me to be reborn in creatures. In fact, as my divine will born again in me was in my possession, I had the right and the power to revive it in the creature. Thus, what my humanity was doing, his footsteps, works, words and sufferings, my breath and my death itself, all this formed the rebirths of my divine will for the creatures who would receive the blessing of the rebirth of my divine fiat. As I am the head of the human family and I called my members in my deeds, I called within myself the many rebirths of my divine will, to pass them and be reborn in my limbs, the creatures. Therefore, it is not a single act that I have performed. My sacramental life itself, each consecrated host, is the continual rebirth of my supreme will prepared for the creature. I am the true sacrifice of such a holy cause, that my will reign. I myself am the one who formed his kingdom in me. By reviving him in me as many times as he would be reborn in creatures, I formed his most holy empire and reign among my members. My daughter, after having secured the kingdom of my divine will in my humanity, I had to manifest it in order to make it known. That is why I came to you and began to tell you the long story of my divine fiat. And you must know that I have done and continue to make so many demonstrations, to tell so many truths, to pronounce as many words as there are rebirths, as my will has done in my humanity. His rebirths in me and his truths that I manifest to you will be in perfect balance. Every rebirth made in me in my divine will and every consecrated host will find for itself a manifestation and a truth, which confirms it and will make it reborn in the creature. Our word is the bearer of life. Is it not our word fiat which, in pronouncing itself, created the heavens, the sun and all that can be seen in the entire universe, and the very life of man? Until the fiat was pronounced, everything was in us when it was pronounced. He filled the heavens and the earth with a great number of beautiful works worthy of us, and it gave the beginning of the long generation of so many human lives. You see how everything I tell you about my divine will, with the power of my creative word, will bring into the human family its many births made in me. That is the great reason for such a long history and for my continual speech. This will counterbalance all that was done by us in creation, and all that I have done in the redemption. And if I sometimes seem to remain silent, it's not that I've finished speaking. It is that I rest. In fact, this is what I usually do in the words and works that come out of me. Just as I did in creation, I did not always speak. I'd say Fiat, and then I'd stop. I was pronouncing my Fiat again. This is what I do with you, I talk, I give you my lesson and I take a break. First, to enjoy the effects of my words. Then to prepare you to receive the new life of my lesson. Therefore, be attentive and may your flight into my divine will be continual. I felt my little intelligence captured and transported to look at the newborn Jesus on the lap of my heavenly mother. Sometimes crying, sometimes groaning, or all numb and trembling with cold. Oh! How my little soul wanted to blend into love to warm him and calm his tears. My heavenly and charming little child, called me near him in the arms of his mother. He said to me, "My daughter of the divine will, come and listen to my lessons." As I descended from heaven to earth to form the redemption, I was to form the new Eden. I had to restore, in my humanity, the first act and the beginning of man's creation. Bethlehem was therefore the first Eden. I felt in my little humanity all the strength of our creative power, the ardor of our love with which man was created. I felt the fibers of his innocence, his holiness, the reign with which he was invested. I felt this happy man in me. Oh! As I loved him as he had lost his place of honor, I took his place again. Because it was appropriate that I first place in myself the order in which man was created, to then descend into his misfortune in order to raise him and put him in safety. So there is in me two continuous acts, merged into one. The Eden of bliss with which I had to put into force all the beauty, holiness, sublimity of man's creation. He was innocent and holy. I, the surpassing, was not only innocent and holy, but the eternal Word. Having in me every power possible and imaginable, and an immutable will, I had to completely reorder the beginning of man's creation, and raise up the fallen man. Otherwise, I would not act in God and I would not love it either as our work, released and created in the ardor of our love. Our love would have felt stopped and helpless, which cannot be, if it had not fully repaired the fate of fallen man, and the destiny of the way it was created. That would have been a gash in our creation, would have accused us of weakness, if we had not restored man completely. Therefore, Bethlehem was my first Eden, where I made and embraced all the acts performed by this innocent Adam, and those he would have accomplished if he had not fallen. Our divinity justly awaited my reparation in his place by repeating what the innocent Adam would have done. I lowered myself and I stretched out my hand to him to lift him up from his state as a fallen man. Therefore, stopping here and there, my humanity did not what to form the new Edens. Because in me were all the acts of the beginning of man's creation. Wherever I stopped with my innocence and holiness, I could form new Edens. Thus, Egypt was Eden, Nazareth was Eden, the desert was Eden, Jerusalem was Eden, Calvary was Eden. These Edens that I formed called the reign of my divine will. These are clear proofs that, just as I have fulfilled the kingdom of redemption and it is making its rounds to be established throughout the world, these Edens, these earthly paradises too, in whom all acts were performed by me, as if man had not fallen, will follow the acts of the redemption and will make their round to establish the kingdom of my divine Fiat. Therefore, I always want you with me so that you can follow me in all my actions and offer everything, so that my divine will may reign and dominate. For this is what interests your Jesus the most. Then he added, "My daughter, my divine will acted in me as queen, for it has in truth always been. In fact, she is my queen by nature. In our divinity, it occupies the first place, governs and reigns over all our attributes. There is not a single one of our acts where she does not occupy her rank of queen. She is therefore queen of heaven, of earth, of creation. She reigns everywhere and over all things. Therefore, wanting man to do our divine will and gives her the rank of queen, was the greatest honor and the most unsurpassable love we gave him. as one and only will reigned. We allowed him to sit at our divine table to share our possessions with him. We wanted it happy, we wanted glory. To see happy the one we had created with so much love with our creative hands. Thus, our divine will and our love could not, nor to be satisfied, nor simply stick to the work of redemption. They want to continue until the work is done. All the more so, that we do not know how to do anything halfway and that we can achieve anything we want, having the centuries at our disposal. My abandonment in the Fiat continues. Continuing my round in his works, I felt surrounded. Each of them waiting for me to recognize it as the work of my Creator. In order to unite us with an inseparable bond. It seemed to me that the divine will, with its light, flowed throughout all of creation as our blood flows through the veins, and that she too flowed in the deeds, words, steps, sufferings and tears of Jesus. I went in search of all things as if all belonged to me. To love them and to recognize them. I was doing that. My sweet Jesus said to me, "My daughter, the one who lives in our divine will, is in communication with all that we have created, because my will is in everything and belongs to all things. One is the will that dominates and acts. Thus all things are to my will as members in relation to the body. The head is God, who has such a connection with all things that they are inseparable from him. For it is our divine will that flows as the first act of life. Only the human will, if it wants to act by itself, without union with ours, can break this admirable union, this bond of inseparability between God, created things, and creatures. Consequently, my divine will is a carrier for the creature of all our deeds performed in creation and redemption. It is indicative of our secrets. Our will is one with the creature that lives in it. How can it hide? And I, my daughter, how unhappy I would feel if I didn't make you aware of my tears, of my most intimate sufferings, of what I did when I was on earth. In my sadness, I would say, the little girl of my will does not know herself. Everything I have done and suffered to receive the return of love from his little I love you repeated and to give him what belongs to me. Consequently, I give you everything that you know how to be mine and that you love as belonging to yourself. I say with joy, I always have something to give my daughter, and she always has something. That is why we will always be together. For we are giving, me, and she is receiving. After that, I continued my round in all the good deeds performed since the beginning of the creation of all creatures, including my first father Adam, in order to offer them to obtain the kingdom of the divine will on earth. My sweet Jesus manifested himself in me. He said to me, "My daughter, there is not a good thing that does not come from my divine will. However, there is a difference between the acts and effects of my divine will. Creation was an act of my Fiat. Oh! How many beautiful things came out of it! Heavens, suns, stars, air that were to be used for the natural life of the creature. The sea, the wind, everything was fullness and multiplicity of works. In fact, a single act of my divine will is capable of filling and accomplishing everything. The creation of man was an act of my Fiat. What did he not put in the small circumference of man? Intelligence, eyes, hearing, mouth, word, heart, and even our likeness, by which we made him bearer of his Creator. How many wonders does it not contain? Not only that, the whole creation was placed around him to serve him. It is as if a first act of our Fiat made in creation wanted to serve the second act accomplished by creating man. Another act of our divine will was the creation of the Virgin Immaculate. The prodigies performed in her were so great that heaven and earth were stunned. So much so that she managed to bring the divine word down to earth, which formed another act of my Fiat, and it was my incarnation. You know how much she brought all the benefits for the human family. All the rest of the benefits among creatures. Virtues, prayers, good works, miracles, are the effects of my divine will. They act according to the dispositions of creatures. They are always limited and without that fullness capable of filling heaven and earth. On the other hand, the acts of my divine fiat are independent of these provisions. So we can see the big difference between the acts and the effects. This can be seen very well in the sun and the effects it produces. The sun, as an act, is always fixed in its fullness of light, which, with majesty, fills the earth. He never ceases to give his light and warmth. The effects of the sun depend on the dispositions of the earth and are fickle. We can see the earth sometimes covered with multicolored flowers, sometimes naked and without beauty. It is as if the sun does not have the communicative virtue of always communicating its admirable effects to the earth. It can be said that it is the fault of the earth. The sun lacks nothing. As it was yesterday, it is still today and it will be tomorrow. But when I see you also making your round in the effects of my divine fiat, as if you wanted not to miss anything in order to enclose everything in him and to pay him the tributes, the love and the effects he produces, to ask him to come to earth to reign there, you dispose of our will to form another act of our divine fiat. In fact, you should know that the fiat voluntas tua on earth as in heaven will be another act of our supreme fiat. It will not be an effect, but an act. But with such magnificence that everyone will be stunned. You should know that man was created by us with this prodigy. He was to possess within himself the continual act of our divine will. By rejecting it, he lost the act and he stayed with the effects. Because we knew that, just as the earth cannot live without at least the effects produced by the sun, if she does not want to live in the fullness of her light and warmth, man could not live without at least the effects of our divine will, since he had rejected his life. Consequently, the kingdom of our divine will be nothing but the reminder of the continual act of our divine fiat operating in the creature. And that's the reason for my long speech about my fiat. This is nothing but the beginning of the continual act of my divine fiat, who never ends when he wants to operate in the creature, and which is so multiple in works, in beauties, in grace, and in light, that its limits are as far as the eye can see. Consequently, continue your round in all that my divine fiat has made and produced. Never get tired of it, if you want to get such a holy kingdom. Then he added, my daughter, all as the effects are produced by my one and only will, and that they act according to the dispositions of the creatures. The acts of our divine will, regardless of these provisions, are produced by the unity of the one act of our divine fiat. Thus, in us, the act is always one. Because in us there is no progression of acts it may seem to the creature we are doing. Sometimes the act of creation, sometimes of the redemption, and that we now want to form the kingdom of our divine will among creatures. It is the manifestation that we make to them of what our one and only act possesses, in such a way that, for them, it seems to them that we do and take out many separate acts. But for us, everything was enclosed in one single act. In the unity of our divine will, which encloses a single act, nothing can escape. It encloses all things, it does everything. She embraces everything, and it is always a single act. Consequently, the effects that our fiat produces and the actions of our fiat always come from the unity of our one and only act. I felt abandoned in the supreme fiat and I said to myself, what could I give to my beloved Jesus? And he, immediately, your will. And me, my love, I gave it to you. I believe that I am no longer free to give it to you, because it is yours. And Jesus, my daughter, whenever you want to give me the gift of your will, I accept it as a new gift, for I leave its free will to the human will so that the creature can be in the continual act of always giving it to me. And I accept it as many times as she wants to give it to me. For she sacrifices herself every time she gives it to me. And seeing the constancy of the creature in this continual gift, I see that there is a true decision on her part and that she loves and values the gift of my will. And I give her the continual gift of my will just as she gives me the continual gift of hers. By expanding its capacity. For the creature is incapable of receiving all the infinity of my will. I continue to grow. Holiness, love, beauty, light, and knowledge of my divine will. Thus, in the exchange we make, you of your will and I of mine, we redouble donations and our will remains united as many times and as often as we exchange it. Therefore, I always have something to give you, and so do you. Because in my will, things have no end and arise in every moment. When you give me your will, it acquires in contact with mine the prerogatives to be able to give oneself continually to your Jesus. I then followed the acts of the divine will by accompanying them with my I love you. I could understand the great difference in grandeur and magnitude between the works of the divine Fiat and my little I love you. Oh! How small and truly like a newborn in front of this Fiat that can do everything and embrace everything. And my kind Jesus, hugging me, said to me, my daughter, she who lives in my divine will is my rich bank on earth. When you say your I love you, I invest it with mine. Small, it becomes large, spreads to infinity. So that the riches of my love become immeasurable. And I deposit them in the bank of your soul. And when you continue your actions, I invest them with mine. I deposit them in your bank in order to have my divine bank on earth. Therefore, your small deeds performed in my divine will serve to give me something to do. Let flow our divine qualities, which are infinite, in your little acts where they mix to become ours. And deposit them in the bank of your soul, so that our bank may find in you its heaven. Don't you know that the one who must live in our divine will must be a nimbe of heaven? So that if one lowers oneself to the earth, but to the point of eliminating all distance, to the point on earth where this happy creature is, we must see the sky, not the earth. And my divine will would not want to be without his heaven. It would then form a sky for itself. The curtains of heaven would be lowered to pay tribute to this Fiat to whom they admit to owe their existence. That is why all the blessed remain stunned when they see a nimbe from heaven on earth. But their amazement ceases immediately when they see that this divine will that forms their heaven and all their happiness is present and reigns in this creature. Precisely to the point where they see that the curtains of heaven, as they descend, surround this creature to sing the praises of my supreme Fiat. Therefore, be attentive, my daughter. If I tell you this, it's so that you know how great is the gift of making my will known to you, and how she wants to form in you her kingdom, so that you can thank me and be grateful to me. Although abandoned in the divine Fiat, I also felt annihilated, but so much so that I saw myself smaller than an atom. I thought to myself, how miserable, small, and insignificant I am. And my adorable Jesus, interrupting my thought and making himself felt and seen, said to me, my daughter, big or small, you belong to our divine family. You are a member and that is enough for us. Better yet, it is for you the greatest honor and glory that you can possess. And me, my love, we have all come out of you and all of us belong to you, therefore, it is no wonder that I belong to you. And Jesus, it is true that all creatures belong to me by links of creation. But there is a big difference between those which belong to me not only by links of creation, but by a link of fusion of wills. That is, my will is the one and only will. I can say that these belong to me through real family ties. Because the will is the most intimate thing that can exist in God as in the creature. The will is the essential part of life. She is the director. She is the queen who has the virtue of binding, through inseparable bonds, God and the creature. It is by this inseparable that it can be recognized that it belongs to our divine family. Isn't that so in a kingdom? All belong to the king, but in how many different ways? Some are part of the people. Others from the army. Some are ministers. Others sentinels. Some are courtiers. She is the queen of the king. Others are his children. But who is part of the royal family? The king, the queen, and her children. It cannot be said of the rest of the kingdom that he is part of the royal family. Even if all belong to the kingdom, are subject to its laws, and that the rebels are put in prison. Consequently, even if all belong to us, but in how many different ways? Only the creature who lives in our divine will lives among us. Our divine fiat brings it to us on its knees of light in the depths of our divine womb. We cannot put it outside of ourselves. For this it would be necessary to put out of us our divine will. This we cannot and will not do. On the contrary, we are happy to have her, to cuddle her, as a dear memory. When our overflowing love produced creation by wanting that, the creature lives in the inheritance of the divine will and amuses his creator with his innocent smiles. And if you see yourself as a little girl, it's the exuberant love of my fiat that jealously watching over you. Do not concede to yourself a single act of your human will. The human therefore has no growth and you always feel small. This is because my will wants to form his life in your smallness. When divine life grows, human life no longer has a reason to grow. Therefore, you have to be content to always stay small. I then continued my surrender in the divine will and my sweet Jesus added, my daughter, Tsela ki dans Monday divin fiat vit and you. Par consequent el posset et put donner les bies chuel posset. El etre divin el entour de partout de telle sort chuel. Does not see, does not feel and does not touch anything other than God. She finds in him her delights, understands and knows only him alone. Everything disappears for her. If she is in her God, all she has left is the memory. To be still on pilgrimage. And that a pilgrim must pray for his brothers. For being able to give the property it owns, it must grant it to them according to their dispositions. Remember, years ago, I wanted to place you in my heart and everything disappeared for you. And you didn't want to get out of it anymore. Me, to remind you that you were on pilgrimage, I placed you outside at the door of my heart or in my arms. To make you see the evils of the human species in order to pray for them. You weren't happy. For you did not want to come out of my heart. It was the beginning of life in my divine will. That you felt in my heart. Protected from dangers and all evils. Because God himself stands around the happy creature to defend it against everything and against all. On the other hand, creatures who are not my divine will and do not live in it, are in the condition of being able to receive, but not of giving. As they live outside of God and not in Him, they see the earth and they feel the passions that continually put them at risk and give them an intermittent fever. So that they are sometimes healthy, sometimes sick. They want to do good. And then they get tired, bored, irritated and give up. They look like creatures who do not have a home to be safe in, and who live in the middle of the street, exposed to cold, rain, scorching sun, dangers, and who live on alms. Just punishment for those who might live in God, but who are content to live outside of Him. I followed the divine fiat in the work of creation. As it seemed to me, beautiful, pure, majestic, orderly, and worthy of the one who had created it. It seemed to me that every little thing created had in it its little story to tell me about this fiat that had given it life. And when the fiat had given them the light of day, they had to make known what they knew about the divine will. Altogether, they had to tell the long story of this fiat. This fiat. Not only had they been created, but, by preserving them, gave them the task of telling its long story. She entrusted each created thing with a lesson to tell the creatures. To make them aware of this divine will that had created them. My poor spirit wandered contemplating creation and wanted to listen to all the beautiful stories that everything created meant telling me about the divine fiat. Then, my sweet Jesus manifested himself outside of me. Il me dit. Petite fille de monde éternel vouloir, je veux que tu saches que L over de la création, de la rédemption, et celle du royaume de notre volonté. Sunt toutes de over de notre Fiat supreme. Le Fiat supreme est celui qui agit. The three divine persons participated. It is to our divine Fiat that we have given the task to create the creation, to form the redemption and to restore the kingdom of our divine will. In fact, in the works that come out of the interior of the divinity, it is always our divine will that operates, even if our divine being always participates in it. Because our will possesses the guiding and operating virtue, and is in charge of all our works. Just as you have hands to act and feet to walk. If you want to act, you do not use your feet, but your hands, even if your whole being participates in the work you want to accomplish. The same goes for our divine being. There is not a part of us that does not participate. But it is our divine will that directs and acts. Especially since sitting in the divine will, his life flows in our bosom. It is our life. If it comes out of our divine womb, that is, if it comes out and dwells, it carries outside of us the creative virtue of what it wants to do, direct and preserve. So, as you can see, everything is the work of our divine Fiat. Therefore all created things are like so many of his children, who want to tell their mom's story. Because, feeling his life in them and knowing where they come from, they each feel the need to tell who is their mother, how good it is, how beautiful she is, and how happy and beautiful they are because they have received the life of such a mother. Oh! If the creatures had as their life my divine will, they would learn about her many wonderful things. And it would be impossible for them not to talk about her. Therefore, they would only speak of my divine will and love it. And they would give their lives so as not to lose it. Then he added, my daughter, our divine will is all, as it is everywhere. The soul that lives immersed in it only continually takes from God. And God in the act continues to pour into her so that not only does he fill her, and as she is unable to contain everything in her, it forms seas around it. In fact, our divine will would not be satisfied if it could not let the soul that lives in it participate in all the particles of our divine qualities, as much as is possible for a creature. In such a way that the soul must be able to say, you give me everything and I give you everything. In your divine will, I can give you everything of yourself. That's why the one who lives in our Fiat is inseparable from us. We feel his smallness flowing into our power. She fills up with it as much as she can. It honors it because it makes it possible for our power to communicate to the creature. We feel this soul flowing in our beauty, and it is filled with our beauty, in our love, and it is filled with our love, in our holiness, and it remains filled with it. But by remaining fulfilled, it honors us because it places us in the condition to beautify it with our divine beauties, to fill it with our love, to imprint our holiness on him, in such a way as to highlight all our divine qualities. In short, it allows us to act and imprint ourselves in it. For it is not proper for us to keep it in our divine will without having our likeness. It may be small and not be able to contain within it our entire divine being. But it is possible to share all our divine qualities, as much as possible, with a creature, so that nothing is missing. We don't want to deny him anything. Moreover, it would be to deny it to our divine will, to deny it to ourselves. Since that's what we want to do. Therefore, be attentive, my daughter. You will find in our Fiat the true purpose for which you were created. Your origin. Your divine nobility. You will find everything, you will receive everything. And in your turn you will give us everything. I was doing my round in the divine will. I was getting to the point where was created the Queen of Heaven, and where the divinity laid down the clothes of justice. As if she were wearing festive clothes, she was renewing the solemn act of creation. She called to life the creature who, by living in the divine will, the only purpose for which God had created man, would not leave the house of his Father. For only our human will places us outside of God, his dwelling place, his goods, his light, his holiness. By creating the Blessed Virgin, God resumed the feasts of creation, his sweet smiles, his holy conversations with creatures. He overflowed with so much love that he immediately made her queen of all the universe, commanding all and all things to honor him as such and prostrate at his venerable feet, to recognize her as queen and to sing her praises. Also, in my usual way I sang the praises of my mother queen, greeting her on behalf of all. Queen of heaven and earth, queen of hearts and heavenly empress who reigns over everything, even over her creator. I told him, please rule over all with your universal empire, so that the human will may restore its rights to the divine will. Reign over our God so that the divine Fiat can descend into hearts and reign on earth as he reigns in heaven. I was doing that. My sweet Jesus manifested himself in me to sing with me the praises of the Heavenly Mother of Heaven. Hugging him, he said to me, my daughter, how beautiful is life in my divine will. It keeps present all that has been done by God. The creature finds all that the Creator has done, participates in his works, and can give back to his Creator the honors, the love, the glory of this act. It can be said that the soul that lives in the divine will places us in the condition of renewing our most beautiful works, and is the rehearsal of our holidays. The creation of the Virgin clearly says what our divine will means and what it can do. As soon as she had taken possession of her virginal heart, without waiting a single minute, we immediately made her queen. It was our will to crown her, for it was not suitable for a creature to possédant notre volonté. Ne porte pas la couronne de reine et le sceptre de son mandement. Our divine will does not want to refuse anything. She wants to give everything to the one who lets her form her kingdom in her soul. And you must know that, just as you find present in the divine Fiat the creation of the sovereign lady and let you sing her praises as queen, she also found you present in the divine Fiat and heard your song. The mother does not want to be surpassed by the girl she has since that moment sung your praises. To honor this divine will that was to possess you, and to give you back your song. How often she asks the heavens, the sun, the angels, and all things, to sing the praises of his little daughter who wants to live in this Fiat that formed his glory, his greatness, his beauty, and his happiness. I then continued my abandonment in the divine Fiat. My sweet Jesus added, my daughter, when my divine will reigns in the soul, she acts and directs all that she does. There is not one thing that the soul does without my divine will placing its first act, to call his divine act on the act of the creature. Thus, when she thinks, it forms its first thought and it calls all holiness, all beauty, all the whole order of divine intelligence. The creature is unable to receive our intelligence, and also does not have enough space for this. Thus, every time my Fiat performs its first act in the intelligence of the creature, with its power, it extends its capacity, in order to be able to encircle a new divine intelligence in the spirit of the creature. It can therefore be said that where it reigns, my will is the first to breathe, the first to throb, the first act of blood circulation, in order to form in the creature his divine breathing, his palpitation of light, and in the circulation of blood the total transformation of his divine will in the soul and body of the creature. And by doing this, she gives her virtue and makes her capable to breathe with the divine breath, beat with his palpitation of light, to feel the whole of his divine life, better than the blood that circulates throughout his being. Therefore, wherever my will reigns, it is the condition of actress who does not cease to be in operation. By becoming a spectator, she delights in her divine scenes, that she herself deploys in the creature, who lends his being as a matter in his hands to let it unfold. The most wonderful and beautiful scenes that my Fiat wants to realize in the soul where reigns and dominates my divine will. My flight into the divine Fiat continues. I understand better how heaven and earth are filled with it. There is not a created thing that does not carry such a holy will. My mind was wandering in the Fiat. My sweet Jesus, manifesting himself in me, said to me, "My daughter, all things created, by my divine will in which they live, feel when my divine will wants to demonstrate a truth that belongs to him, a knowledge about himself, or perform one of his works. The will that dominates all of creation is one. Thus the works feel in themselves the communicative, creative, and preserving virtue that wants to act and make itself known. Therefore, they feel that another sister wants to join them and they celebrate the newcomer. Every word manifested about my divine will was a Fiat pronounced by us and came into the world, like a child from the bosom of our will. This Fiat is the same as that of creation, which, forming its echo, makes his vital force felt where our will resides. What happens, when our divine Fiat wants to act, pronounce, make himself known and manifest other truths, is comparable to what happens when members of a family see that their mother is about to give birth to other grandchildren. The whole family is celebrating because it is growing. Whenever another little brother or sister is added, everyone rejoices and celebrates the arrival of the newcomers among them. Creation is like this. It came out of the bosom of my divine will. All my works form a family. They are united with each other and it seems to them that one cannot live without the other. My will unites them to the point of making them inseparable. Because they feel that the will that dominates them is one. Hearing about so long of my Fiat, of the many knowledges that he continues to manifest to you, they have the feeling that the number of the divine generation of my Fiat is increasing and the family of creation sees itself growing. And he celebrates the prelude to the kingdom of my divine will. Consequently, when I tell you about my Fiat and when he pronounces himself by manifesting himself, the heavens lower with reverence to receive the new birth of the child among them. Honor him and celebrate his coming. My daughter, when my divine will wants to pronounce itself, it extends everywhere and she makes her creative strength and echo felt in all the things where she reigns. After which I continued to pray that blessed Jesus hastens the coming of the long-awaited kingdom of the divine will on earth. My beloved Jesus, who himself awaits with such impatience the triumph of the divine will, seemed touched by this prayer. He said to me, "My daughter, the prayers made in the divine will to obtain the coming of his kingdom on earth exert a great empire over God. God himself can neither set them aside nor refuse to grant them. In fact, when the creature prays in my divine Fiat, we feel the strength of our will praying with its own power. It extends everywhere with its immensity. Embracing universal strength, prayer spreads everywhere. In such a way that we feel surrounded on all sides. It is our own will that prays in us. This prayer turns into a commandment and tells us, I want it. And as she reigns with her sweet empire over our divine being, we say, we want it. That is why the prayers made in our divine Fiat can be called decisions, commandments, who carry the signed contract of what is intended. If what is intended cannot be seen instantly, it is because we arrange the secondary causes in such a way as to let out of us what we have decided. Therefore, there is no question of doubting that, sooner or later, we will see descend from heaven what has been granted to him by decision. Therefore, if you like to see my kingdom on earth, continue the prayers in our Fiat. Prayers that move heaven and earth, and God himself. I will pray with you for this intention. Especially since the ultimate reason for creation is precisely that our divine will reigns on earth as in heaven. I was thinking about how the reign of the divine will could come to earth and how its coming could unfold. Who will have the chance to receive such a great good first? And my Jesus, making himself seen, hugged me by giving me 3 kisses, and he said to me, My daughter, The coming of the reign of the divine will be as well as that of redemption. It can be said that redemption is making its rounds throughout the world, a round that it has not yet finished because all peoples do not yet know my coming to earth, and are therefore deprived of its goods. Redemption continues. To prepare the people's end. To arrange them for the reign of my divine will. Thus, just as the redemption had its beginning, not in the whole world, but in the center of Judea, because in this nation was the small nucleus of those who awaited my coming. The one I had chosen as mother, and Saint Joseph who was to be my nurturing father. It is in this nation that I had manifested myself to the prophets, by telling them that I was going to come to earth. It was right that, where it was known, they should be the first to have me among them. Although they showed ingratitude and many did not want to know me. Who could, however, deny that my heavenly mother, the apostles, the disciples, were part of the Jewish nation and that they were the first proclaimers who risked their lives to make known to other nations my coming to earth and the benefits of my redemption? It will be so for the kingdom of my divine Fiat. The cities, the provinces, the kingdoms that were the first to learn the knowledge about my divine will and His expressed will to come and reign among creatures will be the first to receive the benefits that His kingdom will bring. And then, following His path with His knowledge, He will make His round among the human generations. My daughter. The analogy is great. Between the way the redemption took place and the way in which the kingdom of my divine will come. Thus, in my redemption, I chose a virgin, who apparently had no importance according to the world, who had her would designate because of his wealth, the height of his dignity or his positions. The city of Nazareth itself was unimportant. And she lived in a very small house. I chose her in Nazareth. I wanted this city to belong to the capital, Jerusalem, where the body of the pontiffs and priests who represented me and announced my laws was located. For the reign of my divine will, I have chosen another virgin, who in appearance, has no importance in terms of her riches or height of his dignity. The city itself of Corrado is not important, but it belongs to Rome, where my representative on earth, the Roman pontiff, from whom my divine laws come. Just as he makes it his duty to make my redemption known to all peoples, he will also make it his duty to make known the kingdom of my divine will. It can be said that they will proceed in the same way for the coming kingdom of my supreme Fiat. After which I continued my round in the divine will. Arriving in Eden, I prayed to Jesus to soon restore the purpose of man's creation as it came out of his creative hands. My beloved Jesus made me feel, manifesting himself in me, his divine heart leaping with joy. All tenderness, he said to me. My daughter. Whenever Eden is mentioned, my heart trembles with joy and sadness as I remember how and in what way man was created. The happiness of his condition. Its delightful beauty. Its sovereignty. Our innocent joys and his own which made our delight. How beautiful our child was, a birth worthy of our creative hands. This memory is so sweet and so pleasing to my heart that I can't help but jump with joy and love. Our divine will was his protection against all his evils. It preserved the way he came out of our creative hands and it puts him in competition with his creator. She placed him in the condition of being able to give his love and innocent joys to the one who had created him. Seeing him so changed, stripped of his happiness and in the evils of his human will. Seeing him unhappy, my trembling of joy is immediately followed by a feeling of intense pain. What if you knew how much I love to see you come back in this Eden? To place before me what was made beautiful, holy, and grandiose in the creation of man. You give me the satisfaction, the pleasure of leaping again with joy and placing a lenitif on my trembling of pain. This pain is such that, if it was not followed by the certain hope that my child, by virtue of my Fiat, must come back to me happy by giving me his innocent joys, as was established by us in creating it, my trembling of sadness would have no respite. And my cries of pain would be fit to make heaven itself cry. Therefore, hearing your continual chorus, I want the kingdom of your divine will. My divine heart feels its trembling of pain stop. Leaping with joy, I say. The little girl of my divine will wants and asks for my kingdom. But why does she want it? Because she knows him, she loves him and she possesses him. Therefore she prays that other creatures can possess him. In fact, since my divine will is at the origin of man's life, it alone gives him the ability to be able to receive everything from his Creator, and to be able to give him back everything he wants, and everything his Creator wants. My Fiat has the virtue of changing man's conditions, his happiness. With my Fiat, all things smile at him, all love him. All want to serve him and consider themselves wealthy. To serve in man my divine will. That is, in the creature where my divine will reigns. I continue my abandonment in the divine will. My poor mind always seems to be invaded by all that concerns such a holy will. I even have the impression that my thoughts plunge into his ocean of light to come out like so many messengers bringing with them full of wonderful news. One thought means one thing, and another thought says something else about this Fiat they glorify. By learning and by receiving his life, I am delighted to listen to them. Often it is impossible for me to say in words the wonderful news that my thoughts bring me about the sea of light of the divine will. I feel the need to be guided by Jesus, to be nourished by his words, otherwise I would be unable to say anything. Also, while I was in the sea of the divine Fiat, my sweet Jesus, being seen helping me to put words on what my mind was thinking, said to me, "My daughter, the effects of life in my divine will are admirable. My Fiat keeps the creature continually turned towards heaven and makes it grow not by earth, but by heaven. My will is one with the will that operates in the creature. Thus this will puts the creature in order with its Creator, it continues to manifest to him who is the one who created it, how much he loves her, and how he wants to be loved. Exposing the creature to divine reflections, its Creator rejoices. He paints and makes grow his image in the one who possesses and shares the same will as the one who created it. My Fiat keeps it permanently turned towards the sky. She has no time to look at the earth, being absorbed by the Supreme Being. Even if she looked at them, all things on earth would turn into heaven. For wherever she reigns, my will has the virtue of changing the nature of things. Thus, everything becomes heaven for the creature who lives in my divine will. She grows for heaven because the heaven of my divine will reigns in her soul. On the other hand, the creature that lives by human will is always turned towards itself, looking at herself. The human will is constantly discovering what is human and it is placed in the reflection of what exists in the lower world, in such a way that one can say that it lives on land and let it grow without the likeness of the one who created it. The difference is such between one and the other that if the creatures could see it, they would like and would all ardently wish to live in my Fiat. They would abhor the life of the human will and they would consider as the greatest of misfortunes what makes them lose the purpose and origin of what they were created for. It would be like a king who lays down his crown, his royal clothes, descends from his throne to put on rags, feed on vile food and live in a stable in the company of the beasts that are his passions. Wouldn't the fate of this king be pitiful? Such is the creature that allows itself to be dominated by its human will. After which I kept thinking to all the things that my beloved Jesus had done in my poor little soul, to all his affectionate attentions, that it would be impossible for me to list even if I wanted to. But who can say what I was thinking and why my little intelligence seemed overwhelmed by everything that had happened to me in my life? I was absorbed in all these thoughts. Then my greatest and only good, Jesus, holding me close to him, said to me with inexpressible tenderness, "My daughter, my way of acting in your soul symbolizes the whole creation. Creation was a great work. As our works are ordered, we just created the little things first. The heavens, the stars, the sun, the sea, the plants, and everything else, that is, small in comparison with the creation of man. who was to surpass everything and establish his supremacy over everything. When things are to serve the one who is to be their master and king, as large and powerful as they may seem, these things are always small compared to the one they are meant to serve. Thus, when the universe had been created and all things were in their place, waiting for the one around whom, like a well-ordered army, they had to line up to serve him and obey his desires, we created man. All created things, and his creator himself, leaned over to him to sing to him our eternal love and say to him, "We all have the mark of our creator and we carry it on you, who is in his image." Heaven and earth were all celebrating. Our divinity herself celebrated with so much love the creation of man, that to his simple memory, our love is bubbling so hard that it overflows and forms immense seas around us. The kingdom of my divine will is greater than the work of creation. It can be said that it is a call to the divine being to operate more than creation itself. Thus, everything I have done in your soul symbolizes creation. I wanted you all to me in order to be free to do what I wanted. I wanted to empty in your soul of everything, so that I could put my heaven there. And my many speeches on virtues, practiced by you in the way I wanted, were stars that I used to adorn the sky that I had extended into you. Therefore, I wanted redo everything in you and to be compensated for all that the human family had done wrong and unworthy. To recall the son of my divine Fiat, it was necessary to prepare properly the one who was to receive, first, the life of my divine will. That is why I have flowed streams of graces, the most beautiful flowers, almost as in the creation of the man in whom my divine Fiat was to reign. It's the same in you. All that I did there was placed on hold, like a divine army, to form the procession of the Son of my eternal will. And just like in creation, we have created in abundance so many things that were to serve man, because this man had to let my divine will reign in him. For you too, everything has been done so that my will can find its place of honor and glory. That is why it was necessary to prepare yourselves with so many graces and teachings. All small things compared to the great Son of my divine will which, by its manifestations, by making themselves known, formed his life in order to reign and form his first kingdom in the creature. Therefore, do not be surprised. This is the order of our wisdom and providence that does first the small things and then the greatest, to serve as a procession and decorum for the great things. Is there something my divine Fiat doesn't deserve? Something that is not due to him? And something that wasn't done by him? Therefore, when it comes to my will, or to make it known, heaven and earth bow down with reverence, and all worship in silence. Even a single act of my divine will, my poor spirit is under the sweet enchantment of the bright sun of the eternal Fiat. Oh! How many beautiful and touching scenes take place in me, so that if I could describe them as I see them, all would be under the spell and would say in chorus, "We want to do the divine will." But alas, I am still the ignorant little one who only knows how to stammer. By including the great good of this divine will and how we swim in its gigantic waves of light of unspeakable beauty and unattainable holiness, I thought to myself, how is it possible that such a great good is not known? And that as we swim in him, we ignore the great good, who surrounds us, who invests us inside and out, who gives us life. Only because we do not know it, we do not benefit from the admirable effects of all the great benefits contained in such a holy will. O grace, reveal yourself, Fiat omnipotent, and the face of the earth will be changed. And also, why did our blessed Lord not want to manifest, at the beginning of creation, the many admirable things that his most holy will wants to do and give to creatures? And while my spirit wandered, as if delighted in the sweet enchantment of the divine will, my love, my life, Jesus, the heavenly Master, who charms with his kind speech on his own will, said to me, making himself seen, "My little daughter of my will, neither the soul nor the body of the creature can live without my divine will. Since it is his primordial act of life, the creature is in the condition or to receive his act of continual life, or not being able to have an existence. And as man was created to live in the opulence of the goods of this divine will, his beloved inheritance, man was therefore created to live from us and in our house, as a son who lives with his father. Otherwise, how could he be our pleasure, joy, and happiness if he were not to live near us, with us and in our divine will? A son who is far away cannot make the joy of his father, his smile, his pleasure. On the contrary, simple distance breaks love and brings the bitterness of not being able to enjoy the beloved. So you see that man was created to live in our intimacy, in our home, in our divine will, so that we can ensure our eternal joys and happiness as well as his. But man, our son, though he was happy in the house of his father, rebelled and left the paternal house, and in doing his will, he lost the smile of his father, his very pure joys. As he could live without the help of our divine will, we acted as father and gave him his legal share of our divine will. No longer as a life, which carried him into the Father's lap to make him happy and holy, but to keep him alive without making him happy as before. Give him the basic necessities according to his behavior. Without my divine will, there can be no life. And if my divine fiat is so little known, this is because creatures only know the legal part of it. Often this legal part is not even fully recognized, because the one who lives on this legal part does not live in the house of the Father. He is far from the Father and often finds himself in the position of spoiling with unworthy acts the legal share itself that he has received. Therefore, do not be surprised that little is known about my divine will. If one does not live in her, if one is not in the continual act of receiving one's life, which makes happy, which sanctifies, and who, because one is near her, reveals her secrets, makes known who she is, what it can give to the creature, and how much she desires to take her into her lap to form in her divine life. Especially since by doing his will, man has placed himself in the condition of servant. A servant is not entitled to the inheritance of his master, but only to a miserable compensation that makes him live a life full of trials. Therefore, my daughter, we can say that with you I opened the doors to let you enter and live in our house, in our divine will, no longer on your legal part, but as our happy heiress. After which he added, my daughter. Moreover, given that in this little, which has been said about my divine will throughout the history of the world, having known only the legal part, they wrote about it. What they had known of my fiat after sin. What relationships he has with creatures, even if they offend him and do not live in our house. But on the relationship that existed between my fiat and the innocent Adam before sin, they didn't write anything. How could they write if no one lived in my divine will as in their own home? How could they know its secrets and the great wonder that the operative life of a divine will can accomplish in the creature? Therefore, they could and they can say of my divine fiat that he disposes of everything, that he commands and that he competes. But as for her saying how my divine will operates in itself, in its home, the power of its immensity that can do everything in an instant, envelopes everything, in the creature as in itself. This is a science that the creature did not know until now. It couldn't be written down. That by a manifestation of my divine fiat, and to the one he called to live in our house as our daughter, very close to us, in my will and not in the distance, in such a way that by being able to have fun with it, we would make him know our most intimate secrets. What if we had wanted to demonstrate to him what concerns our will in relation to the creature? While she did not live in her, she would not have understood us. It would have been for her like a foreign and incomprehensible dialect. The divine will continues to occupy my little intelligence. As I immerse myself in him, I feel his invigorating force enveloping me inside and out. My Jesus, who seems to hide behind the immense waves of light of his divine will, often moves in these waves of light. Making himself seen, with unspeakable tenderness, he said to me, my daughter, my divine will is a heartless pulsation. It is the creature that is the heart, and my will the pulsation. See the inseparable union that exists between my fiat and the creature. The heart is nothing, it has no value without the pulsation. With the pulsation, the life of the creature is constituted. But the pulsation cannot beat without the heart. This is my divine will. If she does not have the nothing of the heart of the creature, it has no place to form its pulsation of life to establish and form its divine life. Then, not having a heart, my divine will created it in the creature. In order to have his heart where to be able to form his pulsation. Moreover, my divine will is a breath without a body. The creature is the body, my will is the breath. The body without the breath is dead. Thus, what forms the breath of the creature is my divine life. It can therefore be said that the body of my divine will is that of the creature, and his breath is that of my divine will. See the ensuing union between the two. A union that cannot be separated because if the breath stops, life stops. Therefore, my divine life is everything to the creature. She is the word without the mouth. It is light without eyes, it is hearing without ears, it is work without hands, it is step without feet. Therefore the soul that lives in my divine will serves as his mouth, eyes, ears, hands, and feet. My will restricts itself in order to be able to enclose itself in the creature, while remaining immense, victorious. She forms her kingdom in the creature, uses it as if it were her body in which she pulsates, breathes, speaks, acts and walks. Therefore, the suffering of my divine fiat, the fact that the creatures do not lend themselves to let him do all his operations in them, is incomprehensible. With divine and unspeakable patience, he awaits those who must live in his will, in order to be able to resume his speech and his divine activity to form his kingdom among the creatures. Consequently, be attentive. Listen to my daughter the speech of my divine fiat. Give him life in all your deeds. And thou shalt see the unexpected wonders that my divine will do in you. May everything be for the glory of God and the fulfillment of his most holy will.